Yeah, so at the very bottom of the electronic version, to the back of your packet here. Huh? Yeah, but the last, middle last. Here's the last one. Yeah, see that code. You gotta do it on the computer. Pages of, yeah, double click it, double click it. That's fine. That's right, yeah. Right. All right, as everybody comes in and gets seated, I've got 6 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started with this evening's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We will start with a roll call.
Garner.
Here.
Miller, absent. Daffer.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Van Acker Jr.
Here.
Kehoe. Morgan.
Here.
Kirkman.
Here.
Selman. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Report on council actions. Christy.
Good evening, Commissioners. We had 3 items that went to council on the 7th of August. We had a zoning text amendment to add medically related businesses into the BN zone. That passed. Everybody thought that sounded very logical. We had another zoning code text amendment about the mobile food vendors and the food truck courts and those kinds of things. And they asked one question about how that would affect events that are happening in Lloyd Square. It doesn't affect private events that are happening there. That's a whole separate thing. If they're invited in, they can be there. What we changed isn't going to affect that. And that passed. We also had a vacation of a utility easement on Colorado Avenue in a vacated alley. And they want to be able to build over the top of it, so they went ahead and vacated that too. It was no longer needed for sewer purposes or for water. And then we do have an announcement. I'm just going to move into announcements. Our lovely clerk, Karen Hess, has given her resignation. She's going to be moving to Texas. Her last day is August 30th.
Hot now.
So thank you for all your hard work.
Karen. What part of Texas?
And good luck to you in your future, whatever. We will miss you. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Do we have a replacement?
We just found out yesterday.
Christy is
Can't replace Karen.
Jeff, you're taking notes.
they'll be the shortest notes you'll ever see.
Yes, thank you, Karen, for everything that you've done for us. You keep the meetings running, so. Okay. I will entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda unless there's discussion.
Second.
It's been moved by Steve, seconded by Jeff to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. And since we're past 6 o'clock, I will go ahead and get moving on to the public hearings this evening. But before that, just want to run through the process. We have a lot of you in attendance tonight. And if you haven't signed up for, against, or undecided for the item that you're here for, please do that in the back with Doug. He'll get your name on the record. If you're for, against, or undecided on the project that you signed up for, and if you'd like to speak, you do need to be signed up. So if you want to speak and you're not signed up, go back there and talk to Doug, or we will pass over you. So, you know, everybody has their opportunity to speak this evening and tell us what you'd like to say. The first speaker will be the applicant. They'll come up and have 7 minutes to give us their plan and for their project. Then we'll hear from staff. They'll present the staff report that we all have in front of us and have read through, and we'll ask questions if we have any, and then we'll open public testimony. If we'll go through the order that you're signed up, call your name, come up to the podium there, state your name and address for the record. We need that as we're recording the meeting this evening, and then give us your testimony, ask your questions to us, and you have 3 minutes to speak. When you're done, we'll keep going through. As soon as everybody's been given the opportunity to speak, we will close the public hearing. Well, no, first we'll have the applicant come back up and answer your questions and rebut, and then we'll close the public hearing and deliberate and render a decision. So that's the process. Let's keep it respectful and have a good meeting. So with that, I will start with action item number 1, annexation and zoning to RML, limited multiple family residential and subdivision preliminary plat approval for the Wilson Landing subdivision located at 0 Wilson Lane. For Becky, help me with your last name, Becky. Izagiri. Izagiri? Yep. Got it. Okay, thank you. At Adura, representing Wilson Landing LLC for 30 single-family attached lots and 2 common lots. Come on up.
All right. All right, good evening. I'm excited to present a wonderful townhouse development called Wilson Landing. Okay. Wilson Landing is located on Wilson Lane.
One second.
Yeah.
Name and address for the record.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Becky Izagiri, 2471 South Titanium Place, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. So Wilson Landing is located on Wilson Lane, just east of Southside Boulevard in Nampa, Idaho. This is an excellent location for multifamily development as it is located directly adjacent to new senior living facility to the west and single family to the south. This location offers quick access to entertainment, shopping, and more while maintaining a secluded, peaceful atmosphere. The yellow boxes highlights all the amenities and businesses in the area that will significantly benefit from multifamily development. We seek approval for annexation and rezone to RML. This project will consist of 30 attached townhouse lots and 2 common lots with 15.5% usable open space. The gross density for this project is 8.2 units per acre. Each townhouse will feature a 2-car garage with a 2-car driveway. 15 additional parking spaces will be provided for visitors. The 3.74 acre property is currently located in Canaan County and is considered enclaved, meaning it's surrounded by the city limits and is considered infill within the city of Nampa's area of impact. This is a map from Canaan County's assessor's website. As you can see, that the city of Nampa surrounds the subject property, and growth is sure to happen in this area. So why not have a mix of housing types that will bring a variety of demographics to this area, creating a robust and diverse community that will be able to support itself for decades to come. The 2040 Nampa Comprehensive Plan map designation for this area mixes high density, low density, and industrial. This project plans to extend the high density designation from our site to the west, from the west. The RML zoning designation does limit the height and lot sizes, making it a great transitional zone. Innovative housing options like townhouses are very desirable housing type. Not only are townhouses often more affordable, making homeownership accessible to a broader audience, but they also elevate property values in a single-family residential neighborhood through fresh construction. Additionally, introducing diverse housing scheme in areas dominated by a singular housing type enriches the community's fabric. Furthermore, focusing on infill development is paramount as it signifies a more structured and orderly city expansion, prioritizing central development over continuous growth of the city limits. This development will enhance the quality and character of the surrounding area by incorporating articulation and visual interest in the exteriors via porches, balconies, pop-outs, and various material types. This first floor will have two-car garage, living room, kitchen, half bath, and a laundry room. The second floor will have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a balcony off the master bedroom. The landscaping for this development will consist of water-wise plants and trees selected for the Idaho climate. The 15.5% usable open space will include a community gathering area with a pergola and picnic tables where folks can celebrate birthdays or just eat dinner outside. A 6-foot vinyl privacy fence will be installed around the property's perimeter to ensure privacy and security. We'll also work with the adjacent neighbors around the area to add additional plant screening if they want it. Utilities for this development will come from the Autumn Leaf subdivision to the west of the property. All stormwater will be contained on site, and we are also planning to make full frontage improvements along Wilson. In conclusion, this project will help diversify the housing in this area and create more housing options for those looking to buy in the city of Nampa. There's a housing shortage in this valley, and we ask that you think about the future needs of this community and the young people that you might be affecting. We really hope that we can make this project a part of the Nampa community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Not at this time. Stay close. I'm sure we'll have some.
Yep.
We'll hear from staff now. Christy.
Okay, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Christy Watkins. I'm the Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. You all heard the request that is before you this evening for annexation and preliminary plat approval for the Wilson Landing subdivision. It is surrounded on 3 sides, north, south, and east, by enclaved property, some vacant, some Canyon County residential. And then to the south is the Wilson Estates #1 subdivision. They're all coming in right at or just barely less than a half an acre. We have had a pre-application meeting with the applicant on this project. There isn't much more history than that. City services are available, and we do have the adequate capacity to serve them. As far as traffic is concerned, this project does not meet the threshold for requiring a traffic impact study per Nampa City policy. In the capital improvement list for Southside Boulevard, it is scheduled to be widened to 5 lanes between 2030 to 2036. The total traffic impact fees at build out for this could potentially result in about $105,000. There's no additional public right-of-way that's going to be required, and full frontage improvements, as she stated, will be required. The correspondence that we received a few late comments today regarding high-density traffic, strain on water resources, aesthetics, property values, and quality of life. I believe that you have all of those comments before you tonight. In the building department, they did request that they schedule another meeting when they get ready to pull their building permits. Nampa Meridian Irrigation District has requested that there be a license agreement for the Wilson Drain and the Fox Lateral and the Ore Drain. The Nampa Fire Department has indicated that this will be within 1.2 miles of Fire Station number 6 with a response time of 5 minutes, with a demand of personnel for feel like that's updated. I think that was from a previous project, sorry. I need to go back and look at those numbers. I will pull those for you. And then the engineering division actually has their conditions of approval out in the staff report. So as far as the comprehensive plan goes, this property is dual designated as low-density residential and industrial, but there is high-density residential to the west, which they can pull over onto this property to make the RML zoning compatible. There are a number of guiding principles, of course, found in our comprehensive plan and outlined in your staff report for smart growth principles, building design, housing affordability, and density. The comprehensive plan also defines compatibility, what residential areas will look like in the city of Nampa, and how infill needs to be developed. All those guiding principles are found to be met. The current zoning code promotes transition zoning. This project proposes single-family attached units in sixplex two-story structures. This is a desirable housing type because it promotes homeownership while limiting expensive maintenance, lowering individual taxes, and creating options for new homeownership early and later in life. The project has been reviewed under Chapter 11 for the RML district. This is permitted in the high-density residential zone, and townhouses are permitted according to our use schedule. The homes will be built to match the area in standard building construction, pitched roofs, garages, and yard areas with trees and landscaping, and all the structures will be required to meet setbacks and go through the design review process. So because it's in the RML zone, it cannot have lots smaller than 10,400 square feet for a 6-unit structure. The smallest lot proposed is 15,112. It cannot have lots larger than 21,000 square feet for a 6-unit structure. The largest proposed base lot is 15,483. Those lots then are divided by 6 to be able to fit the townhouse type that they're proposing. And the number of common lots is 2, the number of buildable lots is 30, which creates a gross density of 8.02, which she stated, and that does meet the density for the high-density residential designation. Landscape plan was reviewed and approved by the city forester. We will, as with all residences, require that 2 trees be added per lot. They have provided 15.5% open space in 0.58 acres on the property, and their amenities will include gathering areas, pergolas, and picnic tables. So based on the analysis, staff can reasonably recommend to the commission that the project be approved for annexation. The property the property owner has given permission to Ardura to follow through this process. The property is considered to be enclaved or contiguous to the city limits. For zoning, there are 4 basic laws that need to be met. The proposed annexation and map amendment is compatible with the adjoining districts because it establishes an area of RML zoning that is the same as the immediately adjoining district to the west, and because the zoning district is a permitted use in the comprehensive plan. This project optimizes infill development while providing open space, parking, and more affordable housing options. The proposed annexation and map amendment provides a set of uses that will be reasonably compatible with the existing and adjoining property uses according to the definitions in the comp plan. The proposed annexation and map amendment can be reasonably assumed to be available for orderly development because it also has proposed a subdivision layout that addresses the goals listed in the comp plan in regards to housing, infill, and affordability, and it complies with the adopted city codes and provides a convenient location for future residents. The proposed annexation and map amendment is in the public interest and reasonably necessary because it has proposed a subdivision layout that complies with codes. It has city services and utilities readily available. The traffic infrastructure improvements are either in place or soon to be completed, and it is enclaved and considered to be infill. So should the commission choose to approve these requests, staff recommends approval with the conditions as listed in your staff report. These are your potential motions, and I will stand for any questions.
Christy, do you have a map showing the location of this wider view than what you showed a minute ago, 5 minutes ago?
Wider than that?
Yeah.
I can go back to her presentation. I think she's got one that's wider.
The reason I'm questioning is because you mentioned Fire Station 6.
And like I said, I don't think that was updated correctly. I don't think my slide was right.
Okay.
I need to find more information for you there. But it's in your staff report, is correct. Fire Station 2.
Oh, okay. All right, never mind then.
Sorry.
I just had a random question. We have the county subdivision to the south, but city limits come like right in the middle of that subdivision, right?
No.
Commissioner, Mr. Chair, the final phase of that subdivision was developed in the city, I believe. Let me pull up can you go back to the city limits, Christie?
Oh, I'm trying.
I know.
Come on, Christie.
If that's my recollection, that the phase 4 of the Wilson Estates subdivision was developed in the city with city water.
I keep splashing around, but it's not there.
And it's not pulling up on mine either. No, it does, yeah, it does show the final southern phase of that on Brennan Drive was developed in the city with city water.
So the first phases of the subdivision were in county and stayed in county, and then
The first 3 phases of it were developed in the county, and then
just
the final phase.
because it wasn't contiguous. Well, how would that work?
That was back when I was a very young employee of the city of Nampa.
Still pretty
and I
young.
don't remember.
Okay, I'm just curious. It just seems odd, but
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, random question. Yes, exactly. Any other questions for Christie or Daniel, or we'll move on? All right, we will go ahead and open the public testimony for this item, and I'll turn it over to Karen for the list.
Gary Hammond.
Get a reminder, when you come up to the podium, just give us your name and address for the record, and then after that, we'll start your 3 minutes.
Yeah, you bet. Gary Hammond, 3605 Wilson Lane. And I live in a section of the county of our subdivision that is considered county. But we've had this continuing situation going on for years. And we've never argued about putting single-family homes on this property. The objection of, I think, 95% of the people in here would be bringing in townhouses, apartments, whatever you want to call them. Most of us don't want to see that because of the traffic we have coming in and out. There has increased so much over the last few years. The infrastructure coming off of Greenhurst and going on the south side, you can't get out of there some days. It's so backed up. There needs to be something done about that. So most of us here, we don't need any more traffic. You're talking at least 60 cars coming in there with 30 homes or 30 of these townhomes coming in here. And we're pretty adamant about it, the people that live here and have there. I've been over 30 years. And we've enjoyed what we had there. We don't like seeing, we're getting encroachment problem all the way around us, we know. And we don't know how we can really fight that, except we can't vote for you people being part of the county. You're a city, but whatever you guys do in here will impact everybody in here, every one of us. You might think about that. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Dewan Sweet.
Dwayne Sweet, 3219 Wilson Lane. So I live right across from where they're developing the senior living, and they told us that they would be using Southside as their main facility to bring the dirt in and stuff like that, and it is a flying nightmare. And I don't have a problem with them annexing that portion of it, but I do not want them to come out on Wilson Lane. I went out to get my mail the other night, And if I would have taken one more step out, I had my hand on the mailbox, and I reached around like that and opened my mailbox, and I reached in and got my mail, and I don't know if it was one of my neighbors or not, but if I would have taken that next step out, I would have got hit. And this is a real problem. It's a traffic problem. I've called the police department, the Nampa City Police, I've called Canyon County, and it's just like he said, we've got too much traffic on Wilson Lane. We've got about 3 subdivisions that come through and come out onto Wilson and then go on out to Southside. And it is a real problem. So I am strongly opposed to them building it and then being able to come out onto Southside. I don't know what the problem is with them coming out on Dorothy, or they should have thought of this a little sooner and gone out, got an easement through the senior living. But other than that, I'd like to thank you for your time too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Darren Craze.
Darren Craze, 3315 Caden Lane. I've been on Caden for about 16 years now. The traffic has grown immensely. We have high density all the way around us now. There has been a request to add high density at Pheasant Hollow and Greenhurst, which is the other road in that everyone's speaking about. We have all of the apartments under construction to the north. We have apartments under construction on Greenhurst to the south. We have all of the elderly living that they're in process of building right now. We don't have the capacity for the traffic. There are no sidewalks. I know personally of 2 people that have had their children hit by cars trying to get to East Valley Middle School. They have to walk out on Greenhurst. And what about the apartments at Greenhurst and Southside? They're going to be walking in the road. This is going to add a whole bunch more population to our area. Again, as mentioned previously, we have roughly half-acre lots. This doesn't enhance, as the term was used by your developer from out of town. It doesn't enhance our property one bit. It detracts from our properties. And we like what we have. We don't want high density. We've already had all the high density shoved down our throat in the whole neighborhood. So we would appreciate, as mentioned, maybe some single-family homes in there so that it does match what's in the area and not keep compounding this massive money grab that everyone wants to do for high density. We don't need it in our neighborhood anymore. We don't have the capacity. The roads are terrible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky Tester.
Becky Tester, 3416 Wilson Lane. We are 2 doors down from this development, and like everyone has said, traffic is a problem. I've seen probably 4 incidences where kids on Southside have about got hit by cars that are just barreling down Southside because they're late because it's taken so long or whatever it is. The school buses are a problem at Amity or right there at Second, it's also a problem. It gets backed up during school times. And we haven't even seen the traffic impact from the 54 or 44 units that are coming in with the senior development. And then we're gonna add 60 more cars onto Wilson Lane. Wilson Lane is barely 2 lanes. And right now it's less than 2 lanes because the development that's going on, they have destroyed our road. Both sides the asphalt is basically ruined. They've patched it, but it looks awful. There's cones everywhere. I mean, it's dangerous. It's dangerous for our kids. You can't walk your dogs. I mean, it's created such a mess. And like they said, now our neighborhood is just a raceway, a thoroughway from Greenhurst to Southside, people trying to avoid the rest of Southside because it's so slow, so much traffic. And now to hear that 2030 is when you plan to expand Southside with all these cars, plus the cars that are going to be from the apartments that aren't even done being built on Greenhurst and this other project right next door. I mean, it's just insane to even imagine. And that doesn't include the impact on the schools that are overcrowded, the medical facilities around. I mean, have you tried to get a specialist appointment recently? I mean, the valley is overcrowded, and I know high density is the push, but we don't have the infrastructure. And I know there's a lot of zoning going on, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of planning. I mean, if you try to get out on 12th Avenue at 5 o'clock these days, I mean, it's awful. And it's made our city so hard to get around. The people are so frustrated. I mean, drive around, it's awful. And it makes me worry for the kids. I mean, it's like he says, kids are getting hit because there's not the correct, sidewalks. We're not ready for this. I mean, it's great for down the road, but if we're not gonna fix Southside for another 7 years, we're gonna have big problems. And it's gonna end up in fatalities. And I mean, I've got little kids and I'm worried about that. So that's my 2 cents, and I appreciate you hearing us.
Yep.
Carolyn and Daryl Hood.
Daryl Hood, 3519 Wilson Lane. And I want to agree with several people that have spoken earlier. We've been going through this for about 8 years now with the development of the, I guess they're the senior townhomes they're building now. None of us were aware that the townhomes or apartments that are being built up closer to Amity was about to happen, and now that's amazing. And the growth in the whole area, up on Greenhurst, the number of apartments they're adding in there, it's changed our area completely. And now they want to add this, and this traffic would be coming out on Wilson Lane, which we're not designed to handle this kind of traffic. We already have problems. You've heard other people say it. It's true. I just want to agree with the people saying it doesn't fit. And I really think it needs to be rethought.
Thank you.
Dave and Paula Garcia.
Paula Garcia and David Garcia, 3422 Braden Lane, which is on the corner of Wilson. We bought our house 7 years ago because the area was agricultural. It's on an acre. We have a septic. We have a well. It's rural. We loved it. The road into Wilson, if any of you have seen that road, it's very country. It's very old-fashioned, and we like it that way. The impact of the first subdivision that went in has already messed up with the road. I mean, the big tractor trailers are coming out down Wilson like there's no tomorrow. And the ability to safely get in and out of our own residency is getting pretty rough. And trying to get out from Wilson to Southside is impossible at 5 o'clock. And so I hope you guys will take a moment, and I know the money drives the city, and we've seen how this city has expanded since we've moved here. But take a moment and think of something better could go there other than these townhomes. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Barry Lucas.
Barry Lucas, 3325 Braden Lane. We have lived there for 19 years, and I agree with all that has been said. I would also like to say that there, with 100 people inside of a keyhole, is not a fire safety, is a fire safety hazard. And I would like to just remind everyone all the photos that we've seen that have come out after a fire of how many cars are backed up with people trying to escape the flames. There's kids that you've already heard, been hurt in our neighborhood. Across the valley, we're seeing more bicycle accidents and pedestrian accidents with cars fatalities. I just don't think this is a real safe idea. And one exit for 100 people potentially onto Wilson is not safe. The staff report says that there will be no parking signs on Wilson Lane from Southside up to and beyond this project. Well, you can't get two cars by there already. You've heard the gentleman talk about being almost hit at his mailbox. This is really a safety hazard for all concerned, including the people that would be living there. Thank you.
Tim Straight.
Thank you.
Lita Wallace.
Lita Wallace, 3304 Wilson Lane. I, first of all, have a disagreement with the idea that this is an enclave property. I think the map does show that there's industrial to the north, but if you were actually there, you'd see that it's acreage residential. So they're basically surrounded by county on three sides, and our property is right in the middle of the Autumn Winds project, so that's also county. Another thing, someone brought up traffic. For the Autumn Winds subdivision, they were given an entrance on South Side, and the entrance that's our property, our driveway, was supposed to be emergency use only, and that they're using that as their main construction entrance. And I actually was at a meeting where I overheard them say that the reason, well, one reason why they didn't want to be on South Side was because it's so hard to get in and out. So I guess that's an indication that there's too much traffic. Also, I'm concerned about property values. We are 1 year into a 2-year project on the west of us, and it's terribly dusty and, all this traffic and everything. The house that is on the property that they're proposing to develop has been on the market, and it's been taken off the market. It didn't sell. So I would say that's either an indication that people don't like this environment, the thought of construction and multi-residential, or they need to discount their price. And I also think that if we were older people living there, if we had to sell right now, I don't think we could. Who would want to have another year or two of dusty construction around them on a house that they're going to buy? So and now what are we facing? Another 2 years with an impossibility to sell at a fair price. Also, I'm concerned about the consistency between what's said in these meetings and represented on paper and what actually happens. We've had some real bad experiences with this Autumn Winds development. The developer went to the city and said that our access easements of record had been taken care of, that we had come to an agreement when we hadn't. And the city engineers approved a plan based on that. And it was significantly different than what was shown here. They were going to build a great big storage building pretty much all the way across our northern lot line, and which may be RV, which you can imagine would be really tall. I don't know. And then recently we've had the developer threaten us that if we didn't negotiate the way he wanted, that he would just make those apartments 2-story, and which they were approved to be 1-story. Elderly housing or senior housing. So
It's time.
my
I had a
time's
question.
up. Yes.
Autumn Winds, is that the assisted living development?
Or
Okay.
the senior housing or
Senior housing,
over
okay.
55, whatever. Thank you.
Let's just say over 55.
What was that?
So let's just say over 55.
Yeah.
Roy Retz.
Roy Wrights, 3319 Wilson Lane. Our property lies just almost right across from this development. And trying to get out and get down and get on the south side right now, I can sit there for 3 or 4 minutes trying to get on there because of the traffic. It is terrible. Also, Wilson Lane is a small 2-lane road, and every morning and every night there are school children walking along Wilson Lane with cars racing along there. Now you add 60 more to that, and somebody is going to be getting hurt. Somebody's going to be getting hit. I mean, right now I worry about the children that I see walking along there now. And also, we're concerned about this development going in and what it's going to do to our property value. One of the reasons we purchased the house that we did was because it's zoned rural. And, you know, we like that. And now we're going to be putting in, you know, 30 more, 60 more cars. That is going to be a problem and affecting our property value. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Straight? No? Okay. David Reitz?
Bless you.
David Wrights, 3319 Wilson Lane. Like my dad previously just stated here, the traffic there and going out on the south side is absolutely horrible. I even actually leave my house earlier in the day by a good hour in the morning just so I could avoid most of that traffic. It means I just hang out at work a little bit more, but whatever. So that road is barely 2 lanes. Getting the construction already happening on there, trying to get through there at certain times of the day, it's not happening. There's really only 2 ways in and out of that neighborhood. Like some people have previously stated, they're starting to use our neighborhood as a way to bypass the corner down there at Southside and Greenhurst. Being anywhere between 7 to 13 years from what I saw before you guys do anything on Southside, the sheer amount of 60 cars, 30 cars, 60 cars coming out there onto Wilson Lane onto a 25-mile-per-hour road, it's not conducive to a safe environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Wrights?
Mark Wrights, 3319 Wilson Lane. Like everybody else was saying, it's definitely the traffic. You know, we're right, where our house is located, it's, you know, the property development is directly across. So all those cars, when they're coming down that driveway, their lights are going to be shining right into my bedroom windows. You know, and also, you know, there's no sidewalks, all right, you know, and on the one side, on the north side of the road, there's a big culvert for the agricultural area around, because, you know, it's a lot of the land around is, you know, they got horses and chickens and stuff like that, you know, even though it says commercial, it's not really, like an auto shop or whatever. It's more like a farm, and then the road condition, all right? The road is just absolutely tore up, all right? I personally drive as a commercial truck driver, all right? I don't even take my own truck home, even though I can, there's, and, And the reason is because how soft the road is. There's, 80,000 40 tons of road, all right, would just destroy that road. And then all that, with all that new construction going in, it would destroy it. There's no sidewalks, no easements, it's the only entrance in, that's my, concern. And then also, other than the traffic, crime or the kids getting hit, there's no crime in our neighborhood, in the county area there. If you look up the county or the city, crime map that they just released, you notice the whole area right there, there's no crime. All right, add another 60, homes or whatever. All right, what's that going to do to the crime, especially if they're townhomes or anything? And that's what I'm concerned about. Like right now, it's safe enough. I have, I've come home and I have accidentally left the doors unlocked, and I haven't had issues with crime or anything. And I'm concerned about that changing. And I personally, I wouldn't mind if there was single-family homes, across the street. Like what we already have, developed. We don't get, as county, we don't get much say what the city does. We don't get notified, a lot of times and everything, because we're separate.
Yep, that's time, Mr. Wrights. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Deborah Peterson?
My name is Deborah Peterson. I live at 1003 Southside Boulevard. So this is my husband, and we're right in the thick of it all. At least once to twice a week, there's an actual car accident right there. I'm sorry for, all the kids getting, hit. There's a school bus, that picks the kids up right there on the south side, which is kind of scary. But all in all, the traffic is a nightmare. Even us trying to get out of our driveway in the morning's rough. People like to use our driveway as like a little roundabout. It's not good. Can I add something?
William Peterson, her husband, same address, 1003 Southside. So we moved from that communist state to the west of us there, and we moved here to enjoy, a better atmosphere in the rural area. And right after we moved in, within a few months, 300 townhome complex went in across the street, blocking our view to the Boise Mountains. And now another developer is building right behind us on the opposite side with 3/4 of an acre there. We're going to put 2 or 4 townhouses on there. That's not why we moved here. It may increase or decrease our property value, but in my mind, in all of our minds, it decreases our property value on our opinion, how we feel about it. So just want to get back to the, place where we could be in a rural atmosphere type thing, not so much grow. And yes, there are several accidents right there. We live at the top of Southside, right where the bend is, and it's hard to get out sometimes, really hard. So thank you.
Thank you.
Monty Crabtree?
Hi, I'm Monty Crabtree. I live at 3203 Wilson, so I'm the third house in. I'm one of the first houses that was built in that neighborhood, so I understand the growth. I have no problem with the city wanting to grow, but as everybody said, that's the wrong area. If you want to build them, you got to find another way to get them out. Not on Wilson, take them out to East Railroad. As everybody's mentioned, you got Autumn Leaf, you got the South Side townhouses, which is approximately 185. Down on the corner of Greenhurst and South Side, you got another complex. So you're talking about you want high density, diverse, you've got it. So if you're going to do it, I'm not going to argue about it, but they can't come out onto Wilson. It's so unsafe right now. People use it as a speedway. They're talking about, and I feel sorry for the one that lives back down where the construction. I live across it. You want to talk about a nasty mess between dirt. I have a boat. You got to try backing it into the driveway on that road right now, and then you want to go ahead and add. You are going to expand Southside, but you're going to have to do that so much sooner because there's so much growth going on around here. We have to do something different. So I think, if anything, that's what you kind of need to take a look at. So I appreciate you letting me say something. Thank you.
Sterling Cross. Elmo Ortiz. Stephen Sweet. John Draney.
John Draney, 3513 Caden Lane, a couple of blocks from where they're proposing this. And, we all believe in progress and growth. I'm a third generation Idahoan. I've seen what's happened, as it grows, but we know we can't slow down growth, people coming to Idaho. I was here half a dozen years ago when the same property was going to put in storage units. And we came before you, and you turned that down, which was a great thing. There's 80 units just north of this that are brand new rental units that can go out on South Side. And just to the west of this, they're putting in that senior living. And one thing you'll have to do is eventually you're going to have to put a stoplight on South Side and Wilson Lane. I come out of there all the time going to work. I'm doing volunteer work, food bank, but 7, 8 in the morning, I'll sit there 10 minutes waiting for cars. I mean, it's quite difficult. And it is high density, what you're putting in, but it's right next to a subdivision. And I think there's better places that this kind of growth can be put and be substantial, and we're not going to stop growth in Nampa, Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Peterson. Okay. Douglas Stiles. Deborah Bell. Oh, Mr. Stiles? Okay.
Doug Stiles, 3308 East Bennett, Brendan Drive. I didn't expect to get up here and to talk, but my concern is, just like the rest of them, the growth that's coming in. You've got a big growth there on South Side. You got growth on Greenhurst. But over there on the south side, or over there by the railroad track, look at the big construction that's going in over there. How many more units is going to be put in that area over there? And if they say there's 100 units being put over there, that's going to take, they'll be going over on Amity, then hit south side, or go down some other direction. It's just going to be one complete headache and disaster with, the people getting around town. I've been here for about 10, 15 years, and I loved it here. I'm getting to the point that if they don't start changing things, I might want to have to move out of here. And there's probably a lot of other people would be thinking about the same thing. But my concern is our area is getting so tight where everybody's building so close around us. And it's just, like I say, it's going to take the value of our homes out with all these new complexes going in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah Bell. Brian Varstra.
Hello, Brian Martstra, 3417 Braden Lane, so a block out from Wilson Lane. Really don't have much more to add to what's been said already. Traffic is a problem getting from Wilson onto South Side. And we're very concerned about our home values for sure. My wife and I have been living in that neighborhood for 26 years. We moved there because we liked the area. It was a quiet area, and we see that now depreciating considerably. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else? I don't.
Is that it? Okay.
Can I make a quick comment?
Did you already speak?
Pardon me?
You already spoke. Yeah, no, unfortunately not any of your minutes. Anybody else in the audience would like to speak for, against, or undecided? Yes, sir? We need to have you sign up, don't we? Okay.
My name's Steve Sweet. I live on 3407. Sorry?
We did call it, so, yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sorry about that.
No, my bad.
No, that's right.
I live on, I've been living there since 96. We built a house on I get nervous.
Sorry, what's your address?
3407 East Brennan Drive.
Thank you.
We built in 96. And I'm not going to go through all the traffic and stuff like that because it is busy. But what the developer was saying that, pride in home ownership. These places are not going to be built or not going to be bought. Nobody buys an individual house in between 2 or 3 other places. It's going to become a rental. And not against rentals, but you have so many people that are going to be moving in that they don't have the same respect that we all have on our houses. We all keep our properties up. We don't have an HOA because it's not, well, we have an HOA, but there's no cost to it, and it's not really enforced by anybody. And the place is clean. If you look around, there's no parking on the road, there's no junk on the roads. But my wife and I will take walks at night, and we have people that will fly by us, and I kind of step out towards them to tell them to slow down because they're doing over 30 miles an hour going past us. And I get nervous with my wife and my dog, getting hit. So there is a traffic issue, and I'm not going to repeat that again. But the pride of home ownership is not going to be in this subdivision or in this annexed part. It's just going to be the same old people that when you get into a rental, you don't have respect for it, and you don't have respect for anything around it. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on the proposal? All right. We'll bring the applicant back up and address the concerns.
There was no one signed up in favor?
I asked.
Was that Karen, was that everybody? No one signed up? Oh, okay. Oh, you don't separate them out anymore. Oh, that's where I'm confused.
Nope.
Okay. I'm back on track.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, thanks for everybody's concerns. We did listen. I just want to say I am a third-generation Idahoan. I'm born and raised in Caldwell, Idaho, actually. And I have seen this valley grow. And what I've also seen is I've also seen the housing prices skyrocket. I haven't been able to afford a house. Everything is just doubled. It is insane. We need housing. We need affordable housing. We need housing for young people like myself. If we stop development, we're going to have an affordability issue down the road. You can fix traffic, but you can't fix affordability easily. There are countless cities across the country that are proving that point. We ask that this project gets considered for that reason. For concerns of traffic, we have heard that Southside is to be widened. That is a city issue. We have nothing to do with that. We are making improvements to Wilson. By having development come in, it'll actually improve roadways. by not putting development, it'll keep it the exact same with more traffic. So development will equal more improvements to roadways. And the developers will fund it too. So, and I just wanted to be clear, townhomes do not equal crime. I'm just gonna put that on the record there. And property values will actually go up with new construction.
Hey, just keep it down. We're recording the meeting. It's her time to speak. You guys have all had your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Having an aging and stagnant development will affect your property values. They'll go down. But by having new construction come in, it'll revitalize that area and keep that area going and keep people coming to that area. This area is in an enclave development. It is surrounded by growth. Why not expand the development in areas that make sense, like this area, instead of taking development, putting it on the fringe and developing farmland or expanding the city outward, producing sprawl. This does make sense. That's
I had a
all I
question
got.
for you, Becky. How far is it from Wilson Lane to the first townhouse? It's quite a ways back.
Yeah, it is quite a ways back. I don't know the exact, let me look real quick. I have the plans here.
393.9 feet.
There you
Thank
go.
you, Daniel.
Thank
you. Oh, Parker? Oh.
There you go, Parker.
There you go.
Should have looked at the youngest person over there. Figured
Yeah, technology.
Oh, we're almost at 400 feet before the first townhouse. So,
Right, so the
okay.
development sits back from the road.
Yeah,
so
that's a long ways back. right?
homeowners won't be looking at development.
Thanks.
I have a question for you. I'm not a developer, never have been a developer. A number of the people on the commission are in the development industry, so I'm asking a question for my education. As a developer, do you make more money on single-family homes or multifamily homes?
So we're not the developer. We're the engineering firm representing the
Whatever.
developer.
You can answer
Yeah.
the question.
But I believe it is
You don't know.
more in a single family
No,
to
no,
develop.
I'm not asking the audience, I'm asking the young lady standing up here.
I believe it's more to develop a single family residential neighborhood than it is because you have more property, more
So
to
you're
sell.
building multifamily because you think there's a need for, and I agree with you, that there's a need for,
I mean, it's not, sorry, go ahead.
there's a need for multiple family dwellings.
That's correct.
In
Yeah, and it
inexpensive
does make,
homes.
yeah, sorry. It does make sense in this area. I mean, there's industrial, right? I mean, it's zoned for industrial kind of to the, what would that be? Like the
Northwest.
West, yeah. Area. I mean, and it doesn't make sense to put single-family residential lots near an industrial zone from a planning's perspective. It makes more sense to have kind of more higher density and then flow in to lower density.
But Becky, I'm sorry, on a follow-up question on that, wouldn't it make sense to put single-family homes next to single-family homes?
There's going to be a higher density residential right adjacent to it, and it is nice to have a mix of housing
I'm not
types.
disagreeing with you, I'm
Yeah.
just asking if because you made that point.
Sure,
And I don't want
sure.
to interrupt Commissioner Kehoe's question if you had some additional.
No, you're good.
But I will add that there is such an intense use with industrial that it kind of brings down the intensification, is that a word? If you put industrial.
Well, and it's zoned for light industrial, so there is a difference
Yeah.
between the heavy industrial
Yeah.
and so on. I wanted to ask a question about the access point. So a couple of people had mentioned an access road from Dorothy Lane rather than Wilson Lane. So probably this would be a question maybe for engineering too, but is Dorothy Lane first, is that a private road?
It's dirt too.
And it's, yeah, it's It's a wagon road, isn't it?
Yeah.
Still has the wagon wheel ruts.
And
Sorry, my mic was dead. Dorothy Lane is a private driveway that happens to have a street name. It's not a actual street.
So that answers the question of why there's no access from Dorothy Lane, because it is a private driveway.
It's not
connected. And it's not connected.
the property doesn't go that far.
Exactly. And then, yeah, but the question had come up, why can't we access that? And that's why. And then also the access to railroad, and I think that's obvious. You got a couple of tracks in the way, and
Yeah.
going under or over is
Yeah.
going to be cost prohibitive.
There's already a crossing right down the street, actually. It's, what, half a mile away?
Oh, the Amity one, yeah. How much of Wilson Lane will be improved when this is developed, if this is developed?
Yep, so it'll just be our frontage.
Which
there.
is how much, give or take?
50
Can you
feet?
measure?
Parker's on.
Oh, there, yeah, go Parker, go. Go Parker, go.
So 54 feet, just the frontage there.
So 54 feet of that thoroughfare, raceway, whatever you want to call it, is going to have a sidewalk.
That'd be a passing zone.
Not even long enough for a turn lane.
Well, I mean, I will add that autumn, I believe it's the autumn leaf,
Autumn winds.
the 55 and older community.
They're developing their frontage also, so there will be.
Yes.
It'll
So
be
as
more than
development
54
comes in, more and more of that road will
No,
get
and I get
improved.
it.
Yeah.
And you're right, development does bring, I would question your statement about development will build the roads. You're right, generally speaking, but we're talking years down the road where that money might be available to build that. But these folks sitting here are concerned about today and tomorrow and the next month and so on and so on. And I will stop here because I'm starting to opine, and I'll hold off until after we close public.
What's your anticipated timeline for development?
I'm probably a couple years.
From completion or?
You know, I'm not sure. We have the engineer here, but I'm a couple years,
To
2
begin
years.
construction or to complete construction?
To start construction, I
Start
would assume.
construction.
Yeah.
2 years to start?
To complete.
Okay.
To complete. Yep. Sorry. Yep.
All right. And have you, I mean, construction traffic's a huge red flag for me just because, you know, I've been in this area that I've heard the name of the road 100 times tonight, and I can't pull it out of my mouth here, or out of my brain here. Wilson Lane. Sorry. Has there been any discussions with the neighbor about bringing construction traffic through their development, or is that even an option, or?
We have not had that discussion with them about that, but we will. We can condition it.
I don't know if we can condition that legally, but it would be very nice if you could try to get some access through them and divert what you can off of Wilson. It sounds like they're not doing their part on the other side, but that's another issue, so.
Yeah, we can see if we can time the development to where, I don't know
on
what
over
their
there?
phase of development is on that
Okay.
side there.
And so just to be clear, this is not a multifamily rental project. I'm going to say rental because somebody can buy a townhome and rent part of it. But just so we're clear, the property is it's a 2-unit, I'm sorry, 6-unit complex. How many buildings?
So there'll be, how many?
Five buildings?
Five.
Single-family homes with little tiny yards?
5 buildings.
Yeah, 5 buildings.
5 buildings, okay.
Because they have property lines between every unit, right?
That's correct.
So it is a single-family residence?
Yep,
Zero
yep,
lot lines.
yep, that's correct.
Zero
You're
lot
correct.
lines, yeah.
Yep.
So theoretically, your developer could sell to 6 different owners per building?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's not just theoretical. Are they intending to manage these buildings themselves, or the intent is to sell them all off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they'll likely sell it off to a developer, or a builder, excuse me, who will build it, and then,
Well, they're not even planning on building it.
yeah, I'm not entirely sure what their plan is there.
Okay.
But it would be managed under some HOA. It's got to be.
But it's not like a management company's buying up all these buildings and renting up. They're planning on selling them off individually.
No, the whole development. I don't believe they're going to sell the individual 6 buildings off. It'll be the entire development
Okay.
that will get built at once. Does that make sense?
Is a developer here
It should be.
this
Well,
evening?
they're still going to sell them as basically single-family homes.
Yeah, 30.
Oh, no,
30.
sorry.
Just a zero lot line.
That's correct. Sorry, I was
Thirty.
Yeah,
I
they're
was
not
thinking of-
apartments to be rented out
Yep.
individually as.
That was
Yep.
my point.
That is correct. Sorry. Yep.
It'll be 30 individual homes.
I was thinking of the entire
Yeah.
development. Yep.
Okay. That's all my questions for the applicant. Anybody else have questions?
Asked mine.
Do we want to close, or do we want to ask staff for any input?
Why don't we close and ask?
I have one little question. Why is there no police report?
That's a question I have too, yeah. If there's that many accidents out there?
I mean, they mentioned crime 10 times each, and yet there's no city police report and no county sheriff's report.
Yes, Commissioner Kehoe, I did ask the police department to see if they had missed this one, and I did not get a response back.
Sounds on
I did
vacation.
not get a
Talk
report
to the new
from
chief?
them.
Mr. Chair, in regard to the accidents, I pulled up the local highway crash data. It's not letting me select to get an exact count, but it does not appear that there is a heavy accident count in that area. As to the comment about there being no crime shown on the new dashboard that the city has put out, that would be because the area in question is not in the city limits, and that dashboard does not show any crime statistics other than Nampa's.
Okay. No.
You can't,
No.
unfortunately.
Sorry.
Rules are rules.
I'll move to close public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public hearing is closed.
So, Daniel.
Yes.
I think I read in your report that Nampa Highway District runs Wilson Lane.
Currently, Wilson Lane is in the Nampa Highway District with the utilities going through there. Per our current memorandum with them, it will be annexed into the city probably with our next round of annexations.
Okay.
The roadway itself, not the adjacent properties. To clarify that.
Clarification, that's a really good clarification.
Yeah.
Good job, dude.
So, are you aware of any plans by the Highway District, which I'm sure there's not, or by the city to improve Wilson Lane?
So the way that, are you looking at pavement improvements or curb gutter sidewalk improvements?
Whatever you can give us.
Okay. So pavement improvements, once that becomes in the city limits, we have a 7-year asset management zones, 7 asset management zones throughout the city. We focus on one of those each year for pavement management. So in the year prior to that being in that asset management zone, we evaluate the pavement condition for that entire zone, prioritize the areas that need the work the most and according to the funding that we have available, and do those projects that way. As for the installation of curb gutter and sidewalk in this area, typically in a county subdivision like this, when they come into the city, The only time we end up going back and putting curb gutter and sidewalk is at the request of the property owners, and that's typically done through a local improvement district, that the property owners fund that per city code, and we finance that over a 10 or 20-year period depending on what council elects to do.
So that won't happen.
Typically, it doesn't happen until there are septic problems enough that the property owners need the sewer service, and then at that time, that's typically when something like that would happen.
Daniel, do you know if this neighborhood has like the culverts under the driveways and basically the borrow pit drainage on the side of the asphalt? Is that what this has?
Yes, it's whether they're still there now, they were likely designed that way. They may have been filled in, but yeah, there's no curb gutter drainage facilities, ponds, or anything of that nature. It's just a borrow ditch type of situation, yes.
So have you done any analysis of Wilson Lane as far as capacity goes? And
so what I will say is based on the design capacity of a road, a 2-lane road has adequate capacity to handle the current traffic there and the proposed additional traffic.
What about the junction with Southside?
We can look at that. I'd have to go back and look and see if we have a specific analysis there. At the most that would need would be potentially a turn lane, so a left turn lane installed. We can certainly, as a condition, you could require that the developer do an analysis of that intersection, and if it warrants it, require them to install a left turn lane there. There is 60 feet of public right-of-way for Wilson Lane, so there's adequate public right-of-way to install that if it's warranted. So that's certainly something that you could condition the development on doing the analysis for and installing if appropriate.
When you say capacity to handle the traffic, are you talking about the physical structure of the road in addition to just the size of the road and how how many cars it can handle?
I'm saying that the amount of cars that need to use that road, there is capacity enough on that road to handle it.
And that's what you've said before in prior meetings is throughout Nampa is the roads are fine, it's the intersections that.
That is typically the limiting point at this point in our traffic issues.
okay.
Oh, while we're on that, I don't know if this is on the same topic. I wasn't here when the senior living was annexed. Does that exit on the south side?
So they are correct. They did represent that correctly, that will be an emergency access only coming out.
To Wilson?
Onto Wilson, that their main access will be on south side, and their access that they are developing that comes out to south side will have a bollard chain and be an emergency access only.
The one to Wilson?
The one to Wilson,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
And I did look at those plans as I was sitting here and verify that is in the construction drawings.
Is that property connected to Southside? Or do they have to?
Yes, it comes up and then it's kind of two rectangles that sit next to each other. Yeah.
Sorry, I just didn't have the background on that one.
So one of the things they talked about was traffic driving through the subdivision to skip traffic on Southside. I'm assuming that's because of the intersection at Greenhurst and Southside. Is that a good assumption?
If that's happening, that's maybe a reason, or it may be just the other developments, Pheasant Hollow and Triple Crown, that also connect to Wilson Estates. People from those subdivisions may be driving through there to get out to Southside. The amount, I will say it's fairly unusual to see cut through traffic from an intersection that would take that circuitous of a route. We typically see that more something like over on where Commissioner Miller lives there, over on the southeast corner or southwest corner, where you have a much straighter shot from one road to the other. That would be my experience.
I have a confession to make. I've cut through that neighborhood once. It was when that.
You go slow at least?
I probably went maybe 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, right.
No, I do drive. I have kids and live in a neighborhood, so. But I did do that once because the intersection was under construction and there was a long detour around to my place. And it took a long time, and so I didn't do that anymore.
So when they bring up people dragging down the streets and stuff like that, it's people that live in the neighborhood that do that?
Well, I'm not saying that other people, well, I guess maybe what I'm saying is, in order to make it worth it, you have to drive fast enough through the neighborhood. So I'm not saying people aren't doing it, but.
I'm just trying to understand the problem.
Yeah, I don't know.
Speaking of problems, one of the problems that I have is, to me, this whole subdivision, this whole application has a lot of unknowns, and I really don't like unknowns. And what I do know is not conducive, in my opinion, to enhancing the city.
What kind of
the nature of a pre-plat, though? Or
I asked them about the buildings, and she didn't know who's gonna build them.
that's the nature of a preliminary plat, though. You don't know stuff. That's we have to get to the final plat for that.
It was usually there's more awareness of what's going on. She had to keep on asking an engineer about it. I don't know. To me, I don't like the feel for this, and I don't like the neighbors. I mean, we don't ordinarily get this many neighbors in an application unless they're really adamant about how their feelings are. And I think we're here to help the people of the city of Nampa, not just the city of Nampa make more money.
I think the biggest issue is that Wilson Road, and I've driven down.
Yeah, it is. It is the biggest issue. If it wasn't Wilson Road, I wouldn't have any problems at all, but.
I've driven down that Wilson Road, and it is like driving out in the country. It's not, there's no markings, there's culverts on both sides, and it curves. One thing I was thinking about, though, is people had mentioned the number of car trips. You put 30 homes, townhomes or otherwise, in a neighborhood. I think if you put a single-family home, you're going to have more cars because you tend to have, at least in my case,
18 kids?
Yeah, I have 5 drivers in my house as of tomorrow. And nobody can share a car. Everybody has to have their own car. So I think that you tend to see more cars in single-family homes than you would in a townhome. But that's just kind of what my perspective has been. So having a single-family home there or a townhome there, I think you'd end up with more cars and more car trips with 30 or even 20 single-family homes there. Someone had mentioned schools are crowded. I can tell you that no, schools are not overcrowded. We are fine in the Nampa School District. We have plenty of room, and the schools are not overcrowded. My biggest concern with this project is Wilson Road. How that gets developed is however that gets developed, but a little bit concerned about the traffic.
Hey, Christie, can I ask a question? The
Yes,
long
please.
driveway, is there a single-family residence up at the front?
Yes, sir, there is.
Staying?
One at the end.
Yes, that's staying. They'll be coming around that property in the front.
Oh, off of Wilson, right there at Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah, so here's my.
Dorothy Lane, that long driveway.
Yeah, so as I'm looking at the project, I'm thinking, so the project itself is going to be quite shielded. It's going to be behind that existing residence that's on Wilson Lane, correct?
That's like looking at the senior housing now. You can't, you almost really can't.
And so, aside from the traffic, which Daniel's assured us that the capacity is there for Wilson Lane, it's the intersection. And so the intersection becomes the sticking point, to me. Yeah, because, aside from that, the impact to the neighborhood itself, it's not going to be visible because it's going to be back there. You're just going to have a road entry that goes right there. And then the traffic that comes out onto a street that has capacity, it's just the intersection at Wilson and Southside. That's the sticking point. And like Daniel said, condition it.
There's a center turn lane there on South Side at that point, is there? I can't remember if
Yes.
it extends,
Yes,
it
there
goes all the
is.
way down, doesn't it? Yeah, it goes all the way
And I
down
think
to.
he's saying, Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, a left turn lane off of Wilson onto
Yeah.
South Side, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you
So you'd have a,
the ability to double stack there, one to right turn, one to go left or whatever.
yeah, 'cause coming down South Side, you've already got the center left turn lane.
Or to turn either way.
But even if, like Daniel was saying, there is capacity on Wilson Lane, capacity is not, to me, is not the issue. It's safety is the issue. The road is grossly underdeveloped. The neighbors are complaining about the street isn't even wide enough. You can't even get two cars going down there. If somebody's parked on the side, what have you got then?
So Commissioner Kehoe, I will say that the road, the asphalt section of that roadway is not a goat trail. You know, like when we were dealing with Alma Lane and it was only, 18 feet wide, that is not the situation we're dealing with here. The road is 30 feet to 28 feet wide, which is a two-lane road.
Okay.
So when you go to improve the asphalt, do you stripe it once it's in the city?
This is a local roadway. We don't typically stripe local roadways. At the intersection, if you condition it that they look at the left turn and then that's warranted, there would be striping at the intersection. But we don't stripe local roadways. It's not necessary or advisable.
And I think the other thing is that we can't force the developer to go and put sidewalk and curb and gutter all the way down the entire road.
Yeah.
But they are going to do their part.
Eventually. Well,
They are doing their frontage wherever
Yeah,
they got.
The only problem is
At
there's
least
not
that's
much frontage for this
54 feet.
project.
What's that?
The only problem is there's not much frontage on this.
They don't own the
Yeah,
rest.
but just
don't
like
own-
she said, the 55 and older community has to do theirs as well, right?
And they don't own it, the other property, they can't go put sidewalk across somebody's
Yeah.
property, so. And if you don't, if you leave it the way it is, this road doesn't change at all. It's gonna stay exactly like it is.
Right.
And we argue all the time about trying to keep growth inside the city and not expand out to more farm country and taking our cops and our fire departments farther and farther out. So when we get a chance to do something like this, that's in the city, where we've got everything and we have quicker response times, it makes sense to me. And you're giving a affordability option to 30 more families that needed to step in the door for home ownership. And townhomes is one great way to do it because you can build them for a lot less dollars than detached single-family homes. So you're giving more people a chance to get into home ownership instead of having to rent for another 10 or 15 years. So
well then, the question that I asked originally about economics between the two different types of dwellings, which is, you're saying it's much.
you can build townhomes like this more economical than you can detached single-family homes because you've got larger lots, you've got setbacks. This, the lots are small and you have a zero lot line. So you're getting it down to where they can get more on the footprint, which cuts down on the cost. So they will be, the same size family, detached family home would probably be $100,000 more, which how many people does that take out of the buying pool? When you do the townhomes, you can come in a lot lower price because you can do it on scale and you don't have these huge lots that you've got to pay for dirt. And you can put a lot more there and you can get a lot more people into homes to make their step up. And there's a lot of people after their kids move out that love townhomes because they don't have a yard to take care of. They like to travel and you don't have a yard. So it works for both ends, but it's a great place for new families to start with home ownership.
You think about it, Steve, you've got a builder that hires a contractor to come out and build these houses. He's building 6 at a time, not just 1 at a time, right? Or a plumber. He's plumbing 6 residences opposed to 1 per trip, right? He comes out there, he does all of them as opposed to just doing 1 house and then going to another and then another. So in that way, it becomes more economical because you're condensing the build schedule.
Okay. You move me guys a little bit on those.
And to Jeff's point about the cars, typically your young families are ones that are in a townhome, typically. So or retired.
Townhome.
So if you're retired, you usually have two people, and if you're a young family, your kids aren't old enough usually to be driving, so you've got two cars. So you're typically going to have younger families with only the two parents that'll have a car, so it will be less traffic.
Thank you. Appreciate all of your input.
I'm not an engineer, but I can tell you from experience.
Yes.
But, so I get your guys' concerns on Wilson. I actually I'm right across the street. I come out on Sunflower every day, so I know what you guys are dealing with on traffic, getting out on the south side. Traffic's horrible. We all live all over the different parts of town, and traffic is horrible no matter where you go. But we can't just tell people, well, you can't build anymore because we got to wait for the city to build new roads in the next 25 years. Well, if we do that, this place is just going to go stagnant. So.
And the problem with that is if we wait till build roads, the people paying for those new roads are the people that live here. So our property taxes have to go up if we're not going to develop until we build more roads. So.
I go through Greenhurst and Southside about 38 times a day.
Yeah.
And there's only one time really that I've had to wait, and that was when Southside was closed down there when they were putting the apartments in.
Yeah.
And other than that, I've never had any wait time through that intersection. No. So, but that's not to say that the traffic isn't horrible, because it is.
So yeah, I think I'm with Matt. My sticking point is the intersection on Wilson and Southside. And so if we can condition that correctly, I'm in favor of this because of all the things you guys have said about providing housing and affordability. But I think we do need to stick a condition on there for that.
How often do we look at the comp plan?
For what purpose?
Like just for areas that are already comp planned, like a comp plan is
You mean to do an amendment to the comp plan?
Ever-changing document, right?
Not necessarily.
Well,
We
updates.
typically will update, a full update every 5 years. We try to do that. We just did a small amendment in February.
The city, right?
Yes.
The developer can come
And ask for
an
a change.
amendment. But I have a problem with this area, the way it's comp planned, and I am not one to ever be on the record of taking industrial property and making it housing, but with the way this area has developed, I don't think we're ever going to see an industrial project there, even though it's right on the tracks.
I think that was because of Armor and everything else that was right there.
Right.
Around the railroad track about 100 years ago.
And with what the proposal is, I mean, from everything that's being built out there right now, it's a pretty good transition to the single family. In my opinion, I'm not a residential guy, but it seems to make sense. And I know traffic's a pain. It's a pain everywhere, and with everybody else, a condition would be great to look at the intersection.
So, Chairman, the correct term for that would be a turn lane analysis. If you're going to put a condition on, we would be requesting a turn lane analysis.
That's what I wrote down. I just said analysis, parentheses, turn lane.
Have we heard from you yet?
I agree with the intersection being the biggest hurdle in this. And I think that we definitely need to have more affordable housing in here, and townhomes are a great way to do it.
Can you bring up the conditions that we currently have, Christy, please?
While you're doing that, another quick question maybe for staff. Traffic impact studies. I know that this particular project doesn't warrant a traffic impact study because of the size. But when you're looking at as many construction projects that are going around in a small area like that, why can't we require a traffic impact study based on all of the construction that is going in, just kind of lump them all into one big traffic impact study in that area? Does that make sense, my question, as far as?
So the purpose of a traffic impact study is to identify the mitigations that a project is required to undertake. So when we are looking at a project, they are required to mitigate their own impacts. So if we aggregate a bunch of small projects into one traffic impact study, we either wait to approve all of them until we know so that we can proportion that out to each one if it triggers anything, which small projects, in my experience, rarely, if ever, trigger improvements. And so generally, those types of analysis happens when we update our transportation master plan and we are looking at the global system, and then those small incremental impacts add up to something, and then they go into our capital improvement plans that are undertaken using impact fees and city funds. So the projects themselves still pay into those impact fees to help offset those minor impacts that they have that cumulatively may add up to a project. But as a whole, the small projects just don't, they don't trigger the improvements. And so they're somewhat of a waste of time and effort and cost to have them undertaken when they're this small. That's why we have the threshold of 100 vehicle trips per day, you know, to 100 residential units or 1,000 vehicle trips per day.
So the city, at some point, that traffic impact study, based on the number of projects that might be going on, is basically that capital improvement.
That's analyzed with the transportation master plan and goes into the capital improvement plan, yes.
Okay, I'll make an attempt at a motion, and if you guys want to fix it, that's fine. Thank you, Kristen. I move that we recommend approval of the annexation zoning to RML and subdivision preliminary plat approval for the Wilson Landing subdivision located at 0 Wilson Lane for Becky Izagari at Ardura, representing Wilson Landing LLC, with all conditions listed in the staff report, and an additional condition that the developer perform a turn lane analysis and follow any requirements required by the analysis.
Roads.
A turn lane analysis of Wilson Lane and South Side, and install anything required by that analysis, and adopt the proposed findings of approval as stated in the staff report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval for this item. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That will be before the city council. Just keep an eye out for the agenda, and thanks for your time this evening. We'll let everybody kind of clear out before we get going on the next one.
Those damn Wapping roads.
Huh?
I'm okay right now.
I'm not going to tell her.
Ask a doctor.
She's exercising.
Oh, girl's tired.
Oh.
Is that your right there?
The noisy. All right, item number 2 this evening is a subdivision preliminary plat approval for the townhomes at the ranch located at 905 North Midland Boulevard for Blake Wolf with Wolf Building Company for 12 single-family attached lots and 4 common lots. Blake, come on up.
My name is Blake Wolf. I live at 843 West Horizon Way in Nampa. This preliminary plat matches almost identically to what was given to you for the annexation and rezone a few months ago. My civil engineer just took that along with the conditions of approval and put it into this format along with the required lot sizes, setbacks, utilities, all the stuff that you see on that plat. Nothing has really changed other than we were asked to add guest parking, which if you look at the plat close enough, you will see 6 additional guest parking spots. There you go. Those are those. If you can't see them, maybe the cursor. Thanks, Parker. The cursor's got them. Those are the additional guest parking. Each townhome lot will also have a 2-car garage and 2 cars that can park on the driveway. They're all single-story townhomes, as you probably saw on the renderings, and that's typically my plan going into this, but it was definitely a condition for the west lots from the neighbors during the annexation and rezone portion. Other than that, I don't know what else to share on this because it matches exactly what was presented to the neighbors originally and to this committee. But I'm here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Wolf? Okay, we'll call you back up if we do. Parker, staff report.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. The action requested is approval, denial of a preliminary plat for townhomes at the ranch. As you may remember, this was in March 2023 that annexation was done with a development agreement. A BN PUD with some townhouses and some businesses to the north, the Grace Tabernacle Church to the south, Gem Mobile Manor to the east, and then more townhouses to the west. A lot of these comments were from annexation as well. The fire district, this is 1.1 miles from Fire Station 4. The forestry had some comments on the landscape plan, which is still needs to be revised and can be reviewed. There was a comment from Valley Regional Transit about putting in a bus stop, concrete pad in the frontage, which they were commenting about putting it between the sidewalk and the right-of-way, the street. There is a attached sidewalk here, so the bus stop will need to be integrated in the sidewalk and within the right-of-way. But a condition of approval is that they meet both VRT standards and engineering standards, so that'll be worked out. The plat, this is 1.3 acres, 6 buildable, so there's 12 units here, and there's 4 common lots. The development was designed to meet the concept plan that was part of the development agreement, which proposed 5,000 square foot master size lots split between 2 different units. So they need to meet or exceed 2,500 square feet, which the proposed development does so. The open space, 5% is required, and they're providing 6% here. Again, this is a small development, so the common lots are going to be a little bit smaller. The development proposes 6 guest parking spots, as was a condition of approval with annexation. And again, a landscape plan is still to be submitted and reviewed, which needs to be a stamped landscape plan. The elevations shown there, single level. conditions of approval, I've covered most of those. One condition from the fire district about moving a fire hydrant, and then the VRT bus stop landscape plan, and then some frontage improvements and utility conditions. The potential motion for you, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Parker? Okay. Let's move on to public testimony. Karen, anybody signed up? No one signed up? Okay. Is there anybody here that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this proposal?
Make a
Anybody,
motion, we close the public hearing?
Well, can I ask?
anybody have a
like,
question for Blake?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't remember if you said that. Are you good with all the conditions, like the bus stop and all that?
Yes,
Okay.
I am good with the conditions,
Okay.
and I accept them.
Very hesitant. to say I am.
Good, yes.
I don't know why I needed to ask that. I felt like I should.
Yeah.
I'll second the motion to close public hearing.
Okay.
If it hasn't one already, I can't remember.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, public hearing's closed.
Slam dunk.
I
Everybody
think it's
thinks-
great.
Anybody's got anything to add? I'll move to approve the subdivision preliminary plat approval for the townhomes at the ranch located at 905 North Midland Boulevard, a 1.3 acre parcel for Blake Wolf with Wolf Building Company with recommended conditions and adopt the potential findings in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the subdivision preliminary plat for this item. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Blake,
motion
thank you.
carries. Thank you. Item number 3 this evening is an annexation and zoning to RS7 single-family residential and subdivision preliminary plat approval for the Bentley Meadows subdivision located at 0 South Grays Lane, a 5.69 acre parcel for Ted Burke at EDM Partners, representing Rob Nash, the owner, for 23 single-family lots and 2 common lots. Is the applicant here this evening? All right, come on up.
All right. Hello. I want to just thank you guys for your service. You got a tough job, and I admire it. I want to thank Parker and Christy and Caleb for all their work. I'm going to defer a lot to their report for the sake of time and redundancy. Just want to make a couple quick points that this is, and a lot of it was alluded to last time. This is an infill project, kind of in the heart of the city with a lot of
name and
surrounding-
address.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Start over. Just start over.
My bad. Robert Nash, 10365 West Highlander Road, Boise, Idaho, 83709. Apologies. So anyway, just a lot of, it just seems like this was kind of the idea in the comprehensive plan, and that's what we went with. Initially, we started out, you could go up to, I believe, 40 units. And we kind of listened to the neighbors, tried to get the feel of you guys through your staff, which does an awesome job, and just felt like this was a better piece suited for single-family residential. So what started around 37, 38 in our mind has gone down to 22 single-family lots. We have had some quite a bit of interaction with the neighbors. I've received several emails. We've tried to address those concerns. One was coming out of the subdivision. The lady that owns the piece on the corner, her kids play there, so we provided some open space for better visibility coming out. Another neighbor, she's just pretty awesome, and she's wanting some utilities just along a lot line. Has nothing to do with our subdivision. As long as the city is okay with that, we're happy just to be a good neighbor and allow that utility easement along one of the lot lines. Affordability is a big issue. You guys have a tough job. I also have 6 kids. I have 4 drivers right now. And, I have a daughter that's a nurse at Children's Primary in Salt Lake wanting to come home. She'll be looking at purchasing a lot and a home here. My brother, who is a year older than me, is also looking. He sold his house, poor timing, and then when he went to go buy one, stuff had shot up. So anyway, my buddy Jason Royce, who assures me he was a local basketball legend at Valley View High School back in the day. He is my partner on this, and he is a builder. He does the vertical, I do the horizontal. So this will be a total, it's just us. There's nobody else. So 1,580 homes sold this year, about 220 average a month in Nampa, and we have less than a month and a half left of inventory. You know, I know there was some talk about affordability and stuff, and it's supply and demand, and so we are going to provide an affordable product. So anyway, with that, I've gone on longer than I wanted to. Sorry.
Thank you. I have one quick question. What's that little corner that's
There's a house there.
knocked out there? They might be here tonight, but
Is there is
on
there
the
a copy of the plat?
southeast,
You're talking about
southwest
across the
side,
road,
yeah.
right? There's a house.
Is that just a single-family residence?
Ted,
Oh,
Yeah, it's a
where's that piece
It's a small
of
corral.
property coming out? Do you have the plat? Sorry.
right. I was just wondering what it was.
It was the neighbor there, yeah, and we provided
He's got a
that
little
as
corral there
open
for
space.
horses. And,
Weird. Okay.
yeah, it's just a, yeah. He
I'm just
brought in
curious.
some- He brought in a,
And I have a curiosity
Refrigerator trailer.
education question because
sir.
this is unusual. The lot is very different than most. It's not square, rectangular, or round, or whatever. So I assume it's a lot harder to deal with a lot when it's odd shaped like this?
Yes, sir, that explains going from 38 down to 22, where they're pretty symmetrical and very nice shaped lots, proportional. And we went through, well, Ted went through a lot of variation and worked closely with staff. This took about 3 months longer than normal to develop this concept, but yes, sir, it was very difficult to get good lots that we think are sellable.
Thanks for the education.
Thanks. So, okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks. Who's this one?
Parker.
Parker? Yeah.
Parker's smiling, so it must be Parker. Yeah, it says so right there. See, Parker.
Oh, thanks. I don't read.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. The action requested, this is a recommendation of approval or denial for annexation and zoning to RS7 with a preliminary plat. The original concept was 23 lots and 2 commons lots, and they revised it down to 22 single-family lots and 3 common lots. It's county properties to the north, large lot, single-family residences. To the south, Pheasant Meadows and other county residences as well. And then Rolling Green Estates to the west. Sewer, city systems have adequate capacity to serve the property. There were a number of public comments. Those are in the staff report, as well as some that were submitted later that were printed. The typical building comment, when they submit building plans, they'll have to conform to building code. Police comments, this will add an additional need for .09 officers and .03 staff. The fire district, this is 1.3 miles from Fire Station 5, 6-minute response time. And then engineering comments had utility right-of-way, traffic impact study comments that we can have Daniel comment on later, and then conditions of approval. The staff analysis, this is medium density area here. 2.51 to 8 dwelling units an acre is the range for that. The comp plan text, comp plan text highlights the need to provide single-family residential land uses via innovative housing options, locating housing in areas that improve employment, educational opportunities, and then diversity in housing types as well. So that's in the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan also highlights a compatible design as desired. It's as a visual relationship between adjacent and nearby buildings and the immediate streetscape, providing a consistency of material, colors, building elements, and so on and so forth. The comp plan defines incompatible land uses as land uses that are expected to cause environmental problems for one another. And then the comprehensive plan defines a residential area as a given area of the community in which the predominant character is residential, as well as uses that support residential activities such as parks, schools, churches, etc. So the definition of the purpose of a single-family residential area as written in code is intended for low-density urban single-family residential and compatible uses that provide a stable and healthful environment and have a full range of urban services available. The proposed RS7 zoning district here it meets the medium density residential designation and allows for single family dwelling units per code. The home single family dwelling units, detached dwelling units proposed here match the standard construction of the adjacent area with pitched roof, garages. Then will meet the required setbacks and height restrictions in Chapter 8, Title 10. The uses are existing within a quarter mile. It's largely residential with a mix of county residences as well as medium density subdivisions that are in the city. Regarding the plat, as stated before, city services and utilities are available. The property will be dedicating right-of-way along South Grays Lane, even though they do not abut the right-of-way. There's additional right-of-way that will sneak into their property a little bit. So the number of buildable lots proposed is 22, which is a gross density of 3.87 dwelling units an acre, which meets the range of medium density between 2.5 and 8. Here's an expanded look at the plat. So the open space, 15% is required. The development provides 0.83 as qualified open space, which is 14.6%. Their open space includes play equipment as well as a gazebo and a walking path. There's a provision in code that requires all open space to be at least 6,000 square feet or more and 30 feet or more in the smallest width or depth. Under that section, there's a provision that allows the commission to allow reduced lots in the cases where the development is in an odd shape. So all that to say that if the commission is okay with the odd shape of the open space at the northwest corner, that can be included as part of the open space and meet the 15% by adding that additional amount to it. It may be important to highlight that these lots are 7,000 square feet, both on the north side of the road and the south side. So there isn't a whole lot of room to take a little bit more for the open space. But should the commission require them to add more open space, then they can go back and try and sneak some, squeeze a little bit more out. So here's an overlay we can refer back to as well. The staff findings, the property proposed falls under category A. The property owner is given the right, the consent to annex The property is contiguous through the south, where it abuts Pheasant Meadows. In regards to the proposed map amendment, would make a change on the land use map that would establish an area of zoning that's compatible. The proposed annexation map amendment is compatible with the adjoining district. It establishes RS7 that is same as or compatible with the adjoining district and meets the future land use map designation of medium density. Whether it provides a set of uses that's compatible with. Again, it provides single-family dwelling units that matches the adjacent uses. Whether the area can be assumed to be available for the orderly development. The proposed subdivision meets the comp plan goals in regards to housing and complies with the city codes. Should you choose to approve it, and provides convenient location for future residences, as well as utilities are available. The project will also contribute impact fees for mitigation of regional traffic increases. And then the last one, whether it's in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary. Again, the comp plan lays out the need for housing. The subdivision layout would need to comply, well, it would comply with adopted city codes and provide utilities to future adjacent properties, as well as contribute to traffic infrastructure improvements. Conditions of approval are listed in the staff report. A potential motion is there for you, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Parker. Any questions? All right, we'll move to public testimony. Karen, you have the sign-up sheet.
Dan Friesen? Dan Friesen? Okay. Leslie Contos?
Hi, I live in Pheasant Meadows, which is contiguous, I learned that tonight, to the proposed subdivision. My name's Leslie Contos, and I live at 36 South Ravine Way. Thank you for putting the map up.
Thank you.
We request that the board deny this proposal because it does not meet the open zoning requirements in code. 15% is required. That would be 37,179 feet, but only 6,000 square foot parcels of open space are counted into it. This proposal only shows 36,382, which is 800 square feet short of the parcels that are 6,000 feet or more as required by code. They mentioned it when they were talking about the development and said that they could go back to the drawing board and put more in if required. I know planning and zoning said, well, it's an odd-shaped parcel, but if you look at the map, that little tiny 2,000 square foot open space at the bottom that isn't counted in, you can go to the right or you can go to the left and take one of those parcels and you have your 6,000 feet you need there. So we're requesting that you deny until there's it meets code with the open zoning requirement. Also, we're requesting you table the proposal until the correct paperwork is filed. The paperwork that was filed and that is still on file with the department shows Guy Nash LLC as the owner/developer. I looked up online in the Idaho Corporation search and sent the certificate along with my filing that's with my letter. And Guy Nash LLC was expired back in 2022 before they even started to propose this. The reason this matters to us is because we have a small developer in Pheasant Meadows. The south end is no longer being built. It's stopped. They've run out of money. They have money problems. The city's having to come in and put signs on that they cut the weeds and that they continue with the buildings. There's no roofs on some. Somebody that had to sell their house recently, it's probably went $100,000 under the market value of what it should have been because of the shape of our neighborhood. Our neighborhood's in a bad position right now, and we feel that the planning and zoning is looking at the details, but the board looks at the big picture, Pheasant Meadows, which this subdivision is going to feed into, has literally stopped construction. Our HOA, we're about half built. That means the homes that are there are having to pay double on the HOA fees. Probably the city is going to have to step in, and building and everybody's been very good, but they'll probably have to set in, put liens on the houses. To have a development with smaller houses coming in at the same time, we're asking you table it until our subdivision is stable. And the odd shape size of this, the odd shape, is because the owners reparceled it with the county. It did go to Grays. They didn't want it to go to Grays, so they reparceled so it didn't. And that little corner that somebody asked about is a meat cutting plant. You're going to be building 4 homes that on the other side of the fence there's a guy butchering sheep and cutting it up and selling it. It's agricultural all around.
That's time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Chairman Van
We got
Ocker,
you.
Can I just, clarification, ma'am?
Yes.
And all I want is a yes or no.
I can do
That's it,
that.
nothing else, okay? So your concern, because of the state of the subdivision where you live, is that you brought this concern because the builder might cut and run before the subdivision is complete? That's why you brought up the concern
No,
about
it's a bigger concern than that.
incorporation,
That's not why.
2022?
It's a bigger concern, so that's a no. Okay.
Okay.
Alexia Berlanda.
She has a special
Hi, Alexia.
Michael Berlanda, speaking on behalf of Alexia. She had to leave. 60 South Ravine Way. And I guess our issues are twofold. One is, I guess, really a first world problem, but a first world problem that we pay for in our utilities, which comes down to a resource, water. I've seen firsthand the fight at prime watering hours in the morning for sprinkler systems throughout the yard, where that fight just comes out to a drizzle for the houses trying to fight for the resource. Unfortunately, it is a resource that we pay for, and with the addition of more homes, I'm just not exactly certain what that looks like. The second concern is it's not exactly clear right now, and I find it interesting that the address for this new subdivision is South Grays Lane, and there's only one entrance, or so we were told, through our subdivision of Pheasant Meadows. And with that said, I noticed before the public testimony that there is a 6-minute response time for emergency services. If there happened to be another entrance, it could reduce that to 5 minutes. And I'm speaking strictly from an emergency services standpoint, where if it comes down to minutes and seconds, they're going to end up coming through our neighborhood to the only entrance to this new subdivision, where if it were to go all the way through to Grays Lane, I mean, saving lives is a matter of minutes, seconds, milliseconds. So those are my concerns, or my family's concerns right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cynthia Ford.
Good evening.
Hello.
My name is Cynthia Ford. I am at 61 South Norcrest Avenue, part of the Pheasant Meadows. Concerned about children's safety. We have a lot of small children in our neighborhood. 2 of them, at least, that I know of are learning disabled. My grandson, for one, is highly autistic. He doesn't know right and wrong. I try to keep an eye on him, but it's not easy. The traffic and the noise, obviously. But my main concern is this new development is the builder's responsibility, not ours. Why is it putting upon us to share the costs, to share the traffic, to share the noise, to share all the problems that we have already been through with our builder that we have had and continue to have problems with? We know that there are compliance signs all over our neighborhood and all of that, but the only safe zone in our entire neighborhood is the one that now they want to encroach through. I'm sorry, I'm not a statistic, I'm a person. and I feel very deeply about this. They want to build these houses, take off 2 homes, make a direct access path to South Grays Lane. Why should we incur the costs with our children, our families, our broken roads? It is not fair. So I'm asking you to please be just. Their address is Grays Lane. Let it be so. Thank you.
Donna Anderson. Nikki Flint.
Good evening. My name is Nikki Flint. My address is 51 South Wasatch Avenue in the Pheasant Meadows Division. I recently relocated 2.5 years ago from a state of which I believe was previously and accurately referenced. You're welcome to take your guess. Upon purchasing my home here in Pheasant Meadows, I was elated to see that Napa clearly valued its most precious commodity in the form of farmland. It's extremely disconcerting to me that this proposed Bentley Meadows will take that away, but perhaps that's my most simplistic objection. As one of 2 houses that's located at the proposed entrance of the Bentley Meadows subdivision, I am extremely concerned about the safety that this development will present. It seems not reasonably prudent to have one entrance, of which Mr. Berlanda most eloquently referenced a better argument than I could present at this time. But I am certain that if any one of the builders' families lived at my address with my 2 children, that have learned in the last 2 years that they can safely ride their bikes, play with friends, and use proper safety measures. But now the homes that are coming in are going to reasonably have at least 2 cars each that now are going to use my road as the only entrance in and out of this subdivision. That raises huge concerns for me safety-wise, so I'm just asking to put yourself in our position as residents there. Would you want your children to now be subjected to double, perhaps triple of the traffic that's going to go through for this subdivision? We've heard many other developments that have been approved, or 2, I shouldn't say many, that offer families reasonable priced homes that are other options. Thank you for your time in this matter.
Thank you.
Marcia Kinsella.
Good evening. I'm Marcia Kinsella. I live at 3424 East Park Ridge Drive in Nampa. Gray Lane is a part of what the high school uses, and then they cut across through Park Ridge in front of the elementary school. And we feel that having this new neighborhood, it's going to kind of go like Whispering Heights did. They were going to have one entrance from south or Happy Valley, and then they squeezed in that second entrance on Grays Lane. I realize that the city of Napa doesn't have the money to fix all the roads, and they've been putting in the traffic circles, which is fine, but it doesn't solve the traffic problems on these little 2-lane roads in the subdivisions. So are they going to put a second entrance on Grays Lane from this subdivision? Well, I'm against it. Thank you.
Kimberly Richardson.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I'm actually going to be reading on behalf of my parents who own the property that is on the eastern border of Nash. So my parents are Don and Darla Larson.
Just need a name and address from you for the record.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Kimberly Richardson, 24 South Jerem Lane. These comments are regarding the attached proposal development by Rob Nash, which goes for planning and zoning today. Darla and I will not be in town due to previous encounters, and we are sending this letter on our behalf of our absence. There are 3 items that Rob Nash agreed to in the neighborhood meeting that was held on March 14th at Mr. Straight's property. Please include these items in the written requirements you impose for the development of this property. The first item, Mr. Nash agreed that there would be a 6-foot vinyl fencing placed on top of a 3-foot dirt berm around the northern perimeter of the subdivision. This will match the existing berm and fence that exists where Pheasant Meadows subdivision attaches to our property. The second is that there are no 2-story buildings along the north fence on the eastern third of the subdivision. The proposed houses will literally be in our backyard, and we will be on the other side of the fence with a private swimming pool. The fence and single-story houses will help with our privacy. And the third is that irrigation will still be made readily available for 24 South Jerem Lane, 35 South Mason Creek, and 30 South Grays Lane. All of these properties touch the northern boundary of the proposed subdivision and have current access to irrigation. As mentioned before, Rob has already agreed to these requirements at our subdivision meeting, but I am asking that they be made a written requirement to this development. I hate to have a subdivision in our backyard as we enjoy the elbow room. However, we are not opposing this development as long as the above 3 requirements are met. If these are not mandatory, then we are strongly opposed to the development. That's on behalf of my parents. Myself, I live also at 24 South Jerem Lane, born and raised in Nampa. And my husband was Air Force, and we just retired after 20 years of service. And we were very excited to come back to this area in particular and live with our family. Mr. Nash has agreed. We are currently working on building on the property to the west, or excuse me, to the east. We are having a lot of problems because only our 6 acres have been annexed to the city, but we do not receive any city services. Mr. Nash has been gracious to agree to provide city services that go across that first plot on the south east side of the property. My parents have that very small sliver, and they have also agreed to allow easement for city services that Rob has agreed to, and we're very thankful for that because we're having a lot of difficulty getting our well and septic approved for the current build. We're trying to build our forever home with our family.
Okay, thank you.
Susan and Robert Aker.
Robert Acker, 4265 Whistling Heights Way in Pheasant Meadows subdivision. And with the concern with all the small children that play and up on Wasatch and Ravine, and you'd have 50 more cars causing more hazard for them, that's been brought up. Another concern is having that neighborhood connected to our neighborhood, and if they're going to build cheap homes, our homes aren't cheaply built. We're not Hubble homes. And we don't want to bring our home values down because they want to build affordable homes, which is nice, but they need to close that off and make an entrance through Grays Lane. They also agreed to single-story homes on the south end for privacy to our neighborhood as well. So those are my 2 big concerns, is home value and traffic and the safety for children in our neighborhood. Plus, people walk their dogs all the time, and we start getting people racing in and out, especially teenagers, or someone texts in and someone gets hurt. Same with the other development on Wilson Lane. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have signed up this evening. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak?
Sorry, I was on the list, but I had to step out for a minute earlier when my name was called.
Oh,
Okay.
Dan Friesian.
Yep, come on up.
Dan Friesen, 35 South Mason Creek Road. You can see that's my house there on the far northeast corner of the screen. My main concern is pretty ancillary compared to everyone else in the subdivision. I do use irrigation rights. The access is on the southwest corner of my property, right along the eastern kind of tip of this proposed development. My main concern is being able to still access irrigation water through the irrigation district. I'd just like that to be a provision of the approval, is that infrastructure is kept in place for myself and my neighbors. Thanks.
That is law.
Yeah.
So they have to do it if they
Come back up
don't.
again, please.
Yes.
My understanding is, can you point to his property again, please, whoever did that? Oh, okay.
No,
so-
no, 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 no.
No,
Mine's
it's
the
down to the right.
northeast corner of what you can see on the screen.
Parking area right there.
Still don't see anything moving.
There we go.
Oh, okay, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, you got a head gate right there.
Never mind, thank you.
That's the high line. It actually slopes down into the subdivision and then down onto my property.
I was concerned about another piece of property,
Okay.
so we're good.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, we had one more hand. Do we need to get him into the computer, or can he come up and
I think they were the
state
ones
his?
on the wrong.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, come on.
sorry, that's our fault. Yeah, come on up.
Glad you're paying attention.
Yeah.
I'm David Straight, 30 South Grays Lane, so I'm the owner of this property. And my main condition, or my main questions were just about the irrigation, the flood irrigation water for the additional 3.5 acres of our property, and then the farthest property closest to the airport, they have about 6 acres that they still have irrigation rights to. And just questions about if those will be open ditches, if those will be, piped in underground ditches. So that's question number one. Question number two, about that little place where the green doesn't quite touch Gray's Lane. We have a shared well agreement with the Alfaros where he has his meat cutting business, which is that little kind of white triangle next door. We have a shared well agreement, and I was told that we needed to have that well line. So I'm moving my well line from that little black dot out in the middle of the gray area over to the Alfaro residence on property that I own. So that's why that little, although they did say that they needed one of those emergency access, even though there will be a fence along there for the fire truck to be able to get on in, they just need a 40-foot easement with the same type of barricades that have been at the south end of that road where the kids play because no traffic goes through there. Anyway, that's why that little lane, and there will be a 40-foot easement where they'll put another one of those barriers so the fire trucks can get in on the other side of the fence, I guess, and spray over into the backs of those properties.
But you're moving your well right there too.
The water line, the line that goes over to the meat pit.
Oh, okay.
The little white triangle in the corner there.
Got it. Okay,
All right?
thank you. We'll check on the irrigation for sure, but again, he's got to provide water to you if you have it already.
Yeah, we have water available to everybody. I'm just curious about the
If it'll-
types of irrigation, if it'll be underground or.
For your property or for the subdivision?
No, for our property.
Okay.
Irrigation district will have to decide that, so.
Yeah, whatever it is today, it should
Yeah.
be the way it is.
Yeah, everybody that way, clear over to Victory has irrigation rights.
Correct, yeah. Thank you. All right, we have one more hand back there. Can we bring him up and name and address and do it that way?
The last one too and got called for the wrong one.
Oh.
Tim Straight, 623 South University Boulevard. I grew up on this property and have lived in Nampa for 33 years now. And I think every person that moves here wants to be the last person to move to Idaho. And they think their property is like the one that shouldn't have to deal with traffic. I understand that traffic's a pain. Believe me, I've lived here for a long time. It was a pain when I wasn't even driving. But yeah, I'm just in full support of this. Great builder, has been in Idaho a long time and has worked well with us. So yeah, in full support.
Thank you. All right, anybody else would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this proposal? All right, come on back up. If the applicant can come on back up and address the concerns, that would be very helpful.
If it's okay, I'm going to have Ted Burke, our engineer, just address the open space requirements. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just state your name and address, Mr. Burke.
My name is Ted Burke. I'm with EDM Partners. I'm at 902 North 19th Street in Boise. Just addressing the open space requirements is this is a very irregular shaped parcel, and it is very difficult to create workable lots that aren't odd shapes and are something that builders can put their product on. Within the code, we are allowed, that is an allowance with your permission, to have non-conforming qualified open space lots. By my calculations, we are required to have about 37,000 square feet of open space. We have one large lot that is 32,000 square feet, and then we are making up, we have two smaller lots that make up the balance, and we in fact are over about 4,500 square feet over the minimum requirement. One of the lots is adjacent to the entryway on South Wasatch Avenue. That common lot is only about 2,300 square feet, so we could absorb that into one of our buildable lots and not even have that as open space. We've chosen to leave it as it is because it creates a view corridor for driving around the bend, and it allows an open space for kids to play or to just be in a safer zone around the curve of the road. We do have the rest of the open space in that long, narrow corridor, which by my purposing is that corridor does allow for utilities to come through from Gray's Lane. If we're required to make that 6,000 square feet, we could do that. It would require us to push all our lots along that southern line basically to the east, and we would have to absorb that sliver that is on the corner back in to try and keep our lots as normally sized and shaped as we can. So that's kind of what our response is to the open space requirements. We think we've done a good job of providing an amenity for the community and a safe place for kids to play that is behind the lots and out of the roadways.
Can you just one question on irrigation?
Yes.
So is this going to be pressurized irrigation system, and where's the pump and all that stuff?
Correct. So our plan is to connect down on South Wasatch Drive to provide our lots with pressure irrigation that's connected to the Pheasant Meadows irrigation system. For any gravity irrigation that exists, as they were saying, to provide to people to our north or anywhere else, we haven't done full engineering. We're only in the preliminary engineering stage based on where we are with the project. We will, of course, carry through any obligation of irrigation delivery to any of the downstream neighbors we have to. To address one of the comments is it usually will be pipe and box just because it keeps it out of the way and it takes smaller footprint than open channel.
With regard to the pressure issues that it seems like the neighbors are experiencing, if that pump station needs to be modified or changed, is that?
We can look into that.
Okay. Engineering questions? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just be real quick. So this property is under contract contingent upon approval of that. We are capable developers and builders and have done many projects in the valley. It's kind of, we try to accommodate, and I appreciate Ted explaining why we did some of the stuff we did, and it was all in an effort to comply with neighbors and with what the city wanted to make the best project possible. It's kind of like, I understand anyone wants to be the last one in Idaho. Say this doesn't get approved, he'll sell it to some production builder down the line that will come and try to, ram super high density. I mean, this could be 8 per acre. We are at 3.46, way under even half the requirement. We do our best, and and it's ultimately in your good, capable hands, and we accept whatever comes of it. But we have worked, I think, well with the neighbors. I've got many emails from Leslie, and we've tried to address the concerns. Her subdivision is outside of our control. I think it was just, I don't know. I'm not going to comment, but if you can't sell lots and homes in this market, there's something pretty wrong. So anyway, is there any other questions?
Fencing to the north property and 2-story buildings on the lots that were mentioned on the,
So where there's
just south of 24 South Jerem.
Yeah, so where there's houses, we are going to stick with single family, and we are going to do a perimeter fence, 6 foot, which is typical. So.
Have you had any discussion with the owner of the property that runs parallel to Gray's Lane and up towards Victory?
Right there.
That was.
So he's the owner of the property. I think there was might have been some confusion, and his son stepped up to try to clarify that. So I think it was on irrigation, which we will certainly.
Well, my
provide.
question was, would you consider buying that in the future to further your development, to build more homes?
We tried.
You tried?
Yeah, we made an offer, rejected. So that's what we were able to negotiate, and that's a great point, Commissioner. We would have loved to, and we did put an offer, but they have a desire to stay. And I can promise, my daughter, I have 6 children and grandchildren. They will be safe. I think to assume people are going to come in and not be safe or conscientious of this community, not my experience here in Boise and Nampa, and my brother certainly would be as well. So I think that is an unfair characterization of people that want to just come and be part of the Idaho dream. So, thank you.
Just to clarify, I think you said this, but just to make sure it's clear, you don't have any relationship to the builder of the Pheasant Meadow?
No.
You have nothing to do with that?
No, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Daniel.
Mr. Chair, in regards to the irrigation pressure issue, the city is currently in design with a consultant for a connection out to Happy Valley that will address that issue. And I would anticipate that we'd be under construction this fall.
Okay, is that a city-owned facility? Okay.
Yes, that's city project.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close this public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The public hearing is closed. Motion carries.
So I understand your concern with Wasatch and being closed and great place for the kids to play, but it's not a cul-de-sac. It was always intended to be continued. So unfortunately, that's the way this road's going to get tied in, and that's the way it was planned when they stopped that road the way they did. If they didn't want it to continue, they would have made a cul-de-sac out of it when they developed that. So that's their connection, and they have every right to use it. So.
I had a question for you, Daniel. Or are you done?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, for now.
I'm sorry. So where Whistling Heights comes out to Grays, assuming we could maybe get, is it, number one, it doesn't align, right?
Correct.
And from a spacing standpoint, the more accesses on a street becomes problematic. There's nothing that aligns up toward the north side of this subject property, right? So,
Were they to have successfully negotiated additional property from the original property owner, we would have been able to work out and allow for a connection out to Gray's Lane. I would anticipate that in the future, at some point in the future, that property would come in for development and that roadway would continue out, connect to Gray's Lane and allow for another access, public access out to Gray's. But that just becomes a timing issue of when the property owner chooses to sell.
and you've got 500 feet there-ish. Okay.
Which is why it's stubbed where it's at now.
Correct. That is why we've required them to put a stub street to that property.
Did you say when he sells or if?
I will say that nobody's immortal, so I have yet to see somebody who isn't a when rather than an if.
Thanks, Daniel.
Kind of morbid.
Guy sitting here.
Yeah, especially he's in the audience, man. Okay. That's all the questions I had written down, unless I missed anything. Anybody have any other?
I think they've answered all my questions, and I think they've responded well to the concerns of the neighbors, and I think they've put together a good project. As far as the open space, I honestly would rather see one big chunk of open space in a development like this rather than sometimes you see them dispersed all throughout and you can't even use them, you know, and so I don't know. It looks like a good development that matches what's going on around it.
With those two extra little pieces, it's nice for the guy that owns that one piece of property because his neighbor's not going to be so close, but, you know, your point's very valid other than that.
Parker, was this yours? I can't remember. It's been so long. So, just for clarification on the percentage of open space, are they above the 37,000 square foot? I can't remember because there was some calculations that came up that were different. And even the calculations that were different was 800 square feet, the difference, but.
Commissioner, the parcel common 2 is 36,282. They're probably about 800 around there square feet short of being 15%.
But adding those other two, are they over that?
So the other two common areas are not being able to be counted as qualified open space due to their size and dimensions.
And that's where the code allows some discretion.
Correct. Correct.
Because of the shape of the parcel.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Odd shape. We got it. We understand. We understand.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I was saying, like a lot of these developments, you just see chunks of open space just to get to that requirement. This is better than that, and if like, do we have to officially approve a variance or something, or is it just is it in the code already?
It's in the code.
It just gives you the ability to approve it as it is.
Yeah. 800 square feet on a project like this isn't a deal breaker for me. That's less than this room, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a park that size of this room actually wouldn't be that bad. But
I like it, so I think it fits right in with this division that's connected to, so.
I wish they could have built more along that street, but, you know, it's his property, he can do what he wants with it. Doesn't want to sell it? Doesn't have to.
someday he'll have to.
Yeah, yeah. No, he won't have to, his relatives or his heirs will have to.
Sure. I will make a motion if there's no other discussion or questions, and move to recommend approval of the annexation and zoning to RS7 and subdivision preliminary plat for the Bentley Meadows subdivision located at 0 South Grays Lane for Ted Burke and EDM Partners representing Rob Nash. With all conditions listed in the staff report, and to adopt the proposed findings of approval as stated in the staff report. But before someone seconds, let me ask, should we add the three, the water's really not an issue, the irrigation water. But the other two conditions about the vinyl fencing and
Single family, or single story?
Single story.
Single
I don't
story
see him
homes.
in there.
Homes on the north and.
Should that be included as part of the conditions then if we choose to?
Commissioner, if you choose to add it, yes, it wasn't part of the recommended condition in the staff report.
The question is that I believe that she said the vinyl fence on top of a 3-foot berm.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
He said the vinyl fence, but he didn't say anything about a 3-foot berm, so, and I don't even know if we're able to say that.
You can do that.
We can, and I want to make sure that that's, well, I don't need to make sure, I'll just make the motion. You guys can disagree if you want. Hold on.
Yes.
We'll get there. In addition to the conditions of a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence on top of a 3-foot berm and single-story homes along the perimeter that abut existing homes. That's my motion. Take it or leave it.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval with a couple of additional conditions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. That will go to city council, and you need a break? And we'll take a 3.5-minute break.
3.5 minutes.
5-minute break before we hear from for the last. All right, we still have one more hearing this evening, so if you're not here for text amendments, which are very interesting, you have to leave. You don't have to leave, you can stay, but you have to be quiet. All right, good job. We got back in under 3.5 minutes. So item number 4 and the last item this evening is a Nampa City Code text amendments to change Title II, Chapter 18, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Oh, there's a lot of these.
Just various Title X changes.
Various Title X changes for the city of Nampa with our own Christy Watkins presenting.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I would ask if you've all read through the staff report. Are you familiar with these? Do you have any specific questions that you want me to cover? Commissioner Kehoe. Thank you. Mhm. Yeah.
But my questions were.
Staff has read this code a few times. Huh? Oh, staff has read through this code quite a few times. Which part? Okay, so the building department, the building department has not adopted the international spa and pool codes. Up to this point, they've been looking at them. When a pool goes in, they've been saying, okay, well, these are the codes that you need to meet, but they haven't officially adopted those codes. So I put duplicate code language from the ISPSC into this code so that someone at least had something to say, you need to have latches that do this, or you need to have a safety cover that does this.
That's the problem with our pool. Anybody can do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we needed to have it somewhere in an adopted code that we could reference.
So you didn't adopt the
We didn't-
international code? Why not?
We aren't the building department, so
Oh,
we
you
don't have
can't.
the ability to do that. We only have the ability to affect what's in Title X. And since the building department hadn't adopted it, we thought we needed safety language somewhere that we could fall back on. Mm-hmm.
Safety covers are now in Napa, safety covers,
Not necessarily. That safety cover has to meet very specific manufacturer specifications. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Oh. I'm not going to get involved in that. Maybe.
Around the pool?
Oh, my.
Because of the kids that live in there.
Next question was, remove auto repair from home occupation.
That was a request from Higher Authority that we take the auto repair option out as a conditional use permit and not allow auto repair in residential zones anymore. That's what it means. It will not be an allowed use any longer. Yep. Yep. And inoperable
Chapter
vehicles.
19, to edit the description and purpose and remove the item term visible from any public street. I understand what that means about removing visible from public street, but what exactly, what is chapter 19 that's going to deal with visible on public street?
So Chapter 19 and Chapter 20 are our industrial zoning districts. And it says in there that anything stored behind a 6-foot fence cannot be visible from the right-of-way or from a public street.
If you stack
Do you
something.
understand how hard that is for us to actually enforce? Because you can see stuff over the fences all over the place. So it's kind of not a logical requirement, and we haven't enforced it, I don't think, ever. It's going to stick up over the fence, so. Right, and that's not an industrial zone necessarily, but we're talking about more like the storage containers and the, stacked inventory and that kind of stuff is going to typically be over the 6-foot fence mark.
Precast concrete?
It's going to show. Yeah.
The next one was, chapter 22, to remove dates for parking and recreation vehicles.
Yeah. You're going to make me read this. No, we're actually taking that language out. So, we are removing may be parked on residentially zoned properties from May 15th to September 15th. So basically out in front during the summer months while you're getting ready to go camping or you're going camping, you can keep it out in your driveway. We're taking that out. From September 16th to May 14th, those vehicles may not be parked for more than 48 hours in the front yard setback area of a residentially zoned property, taking that out. Such vehicles not in daily use may be parked in residential zones with no time restriction, provided they are screened from view off the property and physically located on a surface of gravel, pavers, or equivalent. All of that's coming out. As a matter of fact, I can show you what this looks like. Is very difficult to enforce, which is why we're kind of trying something different. We had a workshop with council. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? We've covered a lot of ground already. We had a workshop with council where we talked about this specifically to try to figure out, like, how do we create something that's enforceable that isn't going to have a bunch of RVs allowed to be parked in front of everybody's house all the time? Because it is a vision issue, it's a safety issue. So what they came up with was to take all of that time language out and keeping it behind the fence and saying that recreational vehicles, trailers, or large objects, any of which that are taller than 3 feet, shall be parked behind the 15-foot front yard setback that applies to the livable space of the structure. So those kinds of vehicles will also have a front yard setback just like your house would have. Passenger vehicles like cars, trucks, vans, and motorcycles are not subject to that 15-foot setback. So if you have a car that you use on a regular basis, you park it in your driveway just like everything else. Those aren't allowed to begin with. Those aren't allowed to begin with. I know. If you'd like to lodge a complaint with code compliance, I'd be more than happy to back you up on that. Don't get me started on storage containers.
So does this mean that if somebody is just unloading so there's no time thing, if code compliance drives by and your RV's out front or your camper trailer's out front, you're in violation?
If you're out in front of that 15 feet, so you have to park it behind the front corner of your house.
Before you unload?
Loading and unloading. I mean,
Loading
within
and
reason.
unloading, I mean, if you can justify that to code compliance, they stop and knock on your door and you're like, we're getting ready to go camping this weekend.
Right.
You know, they give you a 10-day violation notice, your camper's gone in 2 days anyway.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
is- I don't like them out front either, but,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
And chapter 27, what that put out?
Oh, so, yeah. I hope I can keep you all on track with this. It's kind of confusing. With the extensions, like, where'd it go? With the extensions, you know how we are always getting requests for extensions of final plats, and you guys get them on your consent agenda, and you're like, yeah, done, whatever. Well, is it really worth anybody's time and money? It's a $55 fee for someone to request that. Once a preliminary plat has been approved, it's good for 18 months. If they come and develop phase 1 and they get it recorded within a year of the approval of phase 1, it is a vested plat, which means that they can do all of the other phases after that without it expiring. without any of those phases expiring. Because it's already been approved, it already meets code by a certain date. Phase one's already been constructed, which means that it's likely going to continue to be constructed in that manner. So what is the point really of continuing to extend if you've already started? Yeah, and the market drives that. If something happens to construction codes or policies in the engineering department in the meantime, and they come in and they have to turn in a set of construction drawings to be approved, that's between them and engineering. If engineering needs them to update something, they can work with engineering to do that. We don't necessarily have to come back and say, extend. They can work with engineering to figure out how to make that work. Okay.
So does that mean if the phase, let's say they do the phase one thing and then phase two is 10 years later, do they have to, they can do the old code that was 10 years old, or can engineering have any leverage to make them do the new
Well,
standards?
engineering will make you update the construction drawings so
Okay.
that everything meets current policies
Current
for the
codes.
construction. But as far as
It doesn't have to come back to us, is the thing.
right, as far as
Okay.
lot sizes, open space, all of that, that was approved with the preliminary plat. And as long as they conform with what was on the books at that time, what that was approved, then that's fine. But the construction drawings will still have to meet current codes.
Was it 18 months? I mean, what was the purpose of that time frame? Was it just to keep them on track?
Well, the preliminary plat is good for 18 months because in that time frame, you've got to go to the drawing board with your engineer to get all of your construction drawings figured out. Once you've started that process through the phases, you've already pretty much got it laid out. So it's easier to do a year after that point. But with the preliminary plat, that's when you're doing all of your original investigation to get your construction drawings completed. So it takes a little longer.
So the purpose of before this change, the purpose of that was what? Does anyone know?
I have no idea.
Okay, that's what I was
honestly, and there are other jurisdictions that I've worked with personally that if you miss that date by one day, you have to start over.
That's ridiculous.
And
like
I
this.
just don't, I don't feel like that's fair. And maybe that's me being a little bit biased because I come from the other side of the counter. But it's like, I feel like it's a waste of my time. I feel like it's a waste of your time. I feel like it's a waste of the
Well,
developers'
it's overregulation
money.
too, really.
Yeah.
So I like that change. That's a really good one. I'll vote for that.
Maybe not anything else, but you'll go for that one. Okay, so Commissioner Kehoe, did you have any other questions? Okay, so I want to draw your attention to the letter that you have in front of you for Chapter 23. Does anyone else have any questions about any other pieces of this? Okay. So this letter is from our Economic Development Department, from Cliff Long. He appreciates the need to reduce the number of variance requests that go before City Council for signs that maybe want to be a little bit taller along I-84. The benefits to individual businesses are limited, but their allowances may downgrade the aesthetic quality of our community. This directly impacts our desirability for future investment. The code was written today, as is written today, needs to be modified. The word, as worded, it implies that variances are a normal way to get things done in Nampa and contributes to our overall issues. Variances should be granted as a last resort only when an application rises to the legal standards that are necessary. So variances have a certain set of criteria that they have to meet. And it's typically what we call a hardship. And financial hardship does not qualify as an actual hardship. It has to be, something unique with the property. So maybe there's a interstate on-ramp that's in your way and your 25-foot sign can't be seen, so you need it to be a little bit taller. Those kinds of things. And that's typically what the justification has been, is that I need to be seen from the freeway. And so we have this code language in here that talks about being able to apply for a variance. We've had, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, we've talked about it a little bit, but you guys don't see these because variances go to City Council. But we've had a lot of signs in this city that are very, very tall that have gotten variances. City Council hasn't denied one. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, they tend to side with the businesses and they grant them. So we have
Well, how
signs that are
often-
50 feet tall, we have signs that are 80 feet tall. We've granted all different kinds of variances. And so one of the ways that we kind of thought, well, let's try to get these variances off the table by allowing a distance within I-84 that can have just a taller sign, because that seems like that's the general request. So we said 500 feet because we just had one that's 480 feet from the freeway that was approved at 70 feet. So we thought, okay, well, we'll take that information and we'll kind of see if we can't squeeze it into that box. So 500 feet from I-84 can be 70 feet tall. That gets rid of all of those variances and it can be seen from the freeway. Cliff, through this letter to all of you and to City Council, does not agree with that approach, and he'd like us to pull it out of this approval and have a larger discussion about it.
What do you think?
Just have a discussion. Does he want to stick with the variance process?
No.
He doesn't think that's working
No,
either?
we have been advised by our attorney that we cannot not allow someone to apply or make a request. So we have to take that application regardless. He wants to take the variance language out and just have, because we have a whole code on variances and whatever, and we can still have that in the background. He just doesn't want us to announce it in chapter 23 that you can do this.
Until further discussion.
Yeah. And then,
So they make them work for it, is
well,
what Cliff wants.
they're still going to ask.
Yeah.
Right? And they're still going to come and ask. He just doesn't want to announce it in the code that it's available. I have kind of a split opinion about it, if you are asking me my specific opinion. I don't like them. I don't think they're necessary. I do think they destroy the aesthetic quality of the corridor running through our city. But if there's a board of 6 elected officials that don't seem to mind, who am I to say yes or no? Okay.
I
Okay.
disagree also.
Okay, great.
You are, I mean, it's 6 elected officials, and I get how the whole system works and whatnot, representation, but still, everyone's opinion still does matter. I think that aesthetic value through the city is important.
Yep, and city council agrees with them. So I'm not sure how to approach that.
Expects to drive down an interstate and not see a sign.
That would be weird. It would be weird.
There are communities in the United States that even have signs in front of around a lot of this country, and they have signs that say, we don't allow billboards in our jurisdiction or something like that.
Well, we're not talking.
The signs are, I mean, I expect that when I'm driving down an interstate, if there's a developed area, I'm gonna see signs. And I expect that to be there, and it doesn't bother me, right? It doesn't bother me at all, because someday I might wanna go into that place, and I'd like to know that it's there, you know? So it doesn't bother me, and I see why the city council would want to do something like that, because they recognize that those businesses are the tax base, right? So.
And we're just talking about the I-84 corridor. We're not talking about 12th Avenue where you got these, yeah, just,
No, as a matter of fact, I think you put the chart in here, right? Oh, sorry, just missed it.
So Matt, you're saying you disagree with Cliff and you would make the change that Christie is proposing.
What I'm saying is that I don't have a problem with seeing the signs. I don't have a problem with the city council approving the signs. I don't have a problem taking the variance language out of there, because I agree with that. We shouldn't just announce, hey, if you got a problem with it, just apply for a variance. It doesn't need to be advertised. I mean, anybody that's in development knows that there's a process called the variance, right? So we don't have to announce that it's there. So I think that can be stricken. But I don't think that, and I agree with coming in and saying within 500 feet, you want to put a 70-foot sign up, that's fine. Because that's fine, that's trying to find a happy medium with the folks, right?
So are you saying you don't want them to have to go before city council in order to get it approved?
I say that they should be able to go to the city council if they want to exceed 70 feet within 500 feet. I think that it's good to increase the sign height along the interstate. If
Okay.
that's
So you want to
something
keep
that's
the
in demand
language
for
that Christie,
people,
you want to keep the language that Christie has?
Yeah, if that's what you have in there and you're saying
Take the
that,
variance language out, but keep
Yep.
this.
for sure.
Okay.
Good.
Everybody understands that you can apply for a variance. What good does it take? How do we win it?
Because we,
Knows you can get a variance.
because we have a whole code section around variance, we don't need it.
We don't need it in
We're
this. It's kind of
basically
redundant
inviting-
in this
redundant.
code.
Inviting them to do it.
I think what it's doing is it's normalizing it. It's saying this is part of the process. Instead of it being an outside process that can get you what you want possibly, we're just saying, hey,
You can do
if
this.
your sign's too small, just go for this variance.
Which it shouldn't be, because that's what the whole purpose of the variance is. It's outside that
Exactly.
process. So
Exactly.
I say we take the variance language out.
Okay.
Let them go to our variance policy. And if they're putting a sign up and they don't know that there's a variance option there,
And they follow code.
So I agree with that. How do the,
Or just have a price per foot. If you want to exceed the 70 feet, there's a price per foot, and just that goes right to the impact fees. How about that?
I see a revenue.
You want a 100-foot sign? Great, let's do it.
That's a new formula.
Exactly, put it in.
Our sign permit fee formula is already like way out there, so that would just be another leg of it.
okay, so just to be clear, you're saying take out the variance language, but also make this change so that these variances aren't coming before city council unless they're outside of this 70-foot, 500.
500 feet.
Help me picture what 500 feet is, like, that's not very much, is it?
Okay, so
Right.
if
I'm
you,
just trying to think.
on
is that one or
Franklin,
two blocks off
on
the
Franklin
freeway?
Boulevard, when you get off the freeway, if you're going west and you get off on Franklin and you go north
Yeah.
to Fargo, which is the first street on the right, Fargo, that's 480 feet.
Oh, okay.
That's the Campbell tractor.
So we have a stinker station coming in there. They just got approved for a 70-foot sign.
Yeah, and you want people will drive 500 feet from a gas station off of
That's
the
the whole
freeway.
purpose of building next to a freeway.
I'm with Matt.
Are we done?
it?
No, I
Is
think
that the
we have
last
more.
thing?
Yeah, I mean, unless you guys have other questions,
We got a public hearing.
Doug's here to talk to landscaping if you guys have any landscaping questions, but
Doug waited
You were
here all
here
night
just
to
for the
talk about that?
we're tag teaming this one. He was signing people in.
500 feet of the freeway.
It has to be grass. It has to be,
How little water?
All grass.
How little water should we put on our landscaping?
That's part of what we're changing.
Is public hearing open?
No, it's not. We're still in presentation
Oh, sorry.
and questioning the applicant.
going down.
No questions
No.
for Doug?
We might just check. Doug, do you have highlights you want to give us, or are you good? Anything you got to point out?
In the landscape code in chapter 33, I just want you to know that we are requiring irrigation plans now. That came out of this drought tolerant committee. And we have details about what goes into the planting plan and the irrigation plans that we didn't have before. We're hoping that that'll be a guide, checklist, if you will, of what needs to go in. There's also a discussion about artificial turf in there. And the artificial turf is allowed, but in a very limited fashion. And so there's some discussion about how that needs to be installed and the approval process to have artificial turf in. We have kind of a pilot project going on right now with the Toyota facility on Idaho Center Boulevard. They've replaced their turf with artificial turf. Oddly enough, most people don't realize that artificial turf can be more maintenance than a regular turf lawn for a lot of different reasons. So we've got a request to do that. We're putting it in the code, seeing how it flies, and we'll see what happens with that. The rest of the code is largely syntax and organization, so it's a little easier to read. So, yeah.
Size, I know we talked about having, like, as far as licensed landscape architect preparing landscape plans, irrigation plans and all that, is there still a size, like an acre or more, or is that still there?
Yeah, it is an acre, if the site itself is an acre or more, and it has to be commercial, multifamily, new residential, family residential, we don't require that. Then it needs to be signed by a registered landscape architect. Under an acre, it can just be a landscape designer or an architect, or, it can be a hand-drawn design. So.
Commercial too, though?
Yes, commercial.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
You still need a design, it just doesn't have to be stamped by it.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Do you see this as adding a lot of compliance issues?
The requiring the landscape architect. Again,
That and like planting the tree correctly and all the tree planting requirements and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, the city has a tree detail, and we run things through the city forester. Generally, most of the plans that we receive, the tree details are just reused over and over again. So, yeah, it's not an issue.
You're not going to crawl out there on the lawn and make sure that it's.
Not unless we see something that looks odd, yeah.
So on land between right-of-way and property line, is that requirement turf, or is it rock okay
Could be
in
rock.
certain areas, or?
I'm sorry. Yeah, Chair Van Ocker, it could be rock, it could be turf, it could be a combination of turf and shrubs.
I didn't read through all these.
Just thought of something, sidebar, sort of. In my neighborhood, they are installing the fiber optic infrastructure, the cables and all that. They are doing a fabulous job. Once they're gone, you couldn't even tell they were there. I mean, this is like 10 minutes after they're gone, you can't even tell they were there. They are doing a very good job.
Is that the city?
No, it's contracted.
We're glad you got the good contract.
You're lucky.
There's others that weren't so lucky.
We had one that hit a pressurized irrigation main on Pine Street.
Sorry.
Shut down
Take
traffic.
back what I said.
Great. That's in Meridian, though.
Not bad.
In Nampa, they're good. In Meridian, they're not good. Okay.
They're doing a great job in my
On the
neighborhood.
record. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Doug, for landscape updates. We will go ahead and open the public hearing, the public testimony. If you'd like to speak. Yeah, I've heard that out of order many times tonight.
Forgot to give his name and the address.
No, seriously, is there anybody here that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this proposal?
Make a motion, we close public hearing.
Second.
Did we open it? You did.
Okay, it has been moved by Peggy, who seconded?
Steve.
Steve, second, to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No one is opposed.
Move on, that's it.
Okay, good. So that motion carries. Public hearing is closed. Any discussion, or
I got
would you like to
decided.
make a motion?
Come out front and get it.
I move to recommend approval of the changes to Title 10 Planning and Zoning, Chapter 1, Chapter 3, and Chapter 22 as staff proposed findings as presented in the staff report, and direct the Planning and Zoning Director and City Attorney to draft an ordinance for reading at a future City Council meeting for the City of Nampa, and to take out the variance language in Chapter 23.
Did you put more enthusiasm into that?
Second.
I really want to go to bed.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend approval of these items. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll go to City Council.
Thank you for
I
all
make a
your work.
motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Third, fourth.
Okay. Peggy
Drew.
moved to adjourn the meeting.
Drew.
We have a second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
All opposed?
Aaron, thank you very much for all the work you do.
Randy's gonna think I stole his mail.
I'm so glad we had snacks tonight. It was important.
Had you heard that Crystal is pregnant?
I won't. Thank you for everything. Good luck in technical Texas.
I like that idea.
Well, we'll miss you.